J Squad.
We gotta find now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find the culprit. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find the culprit. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find the culprit. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find the culprit. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find the culprit. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find the culprit. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. The culprit. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue.
Yo, what is going on, everybody? How y'all doing today? Oof, I forgot to send everything out. No wonder. Let's get this party started. Boom. Did I send it here? Nope, I didn't send it anywhere. It's send now, though. There we go. There we go. Gonna be an interesting stream today. Got quite a few quite a few things to look at. First thing I'm gonna do tonight. Well, I got a couple of small things to go over with Grums, but we're gonna look at this reveal of the Twitter algorithm and see what's going down with it. It looks kind of like insane, the stuff that they're doing. Kind of like the free speech app will say ain't free speeching. We're gonna do that, and then we've got. I said I would watch Sigma's video on the hypocrisies of Birdman, the Birdman. So we're gonna do that today too. But let's get going. And while I'm doing some of this, probably the Birdman video, of course, I'll be playing Dwarf Fortress. I ended up accidentally deleting my last fort, which is sad because it was actually going fairly well. And then I ended up making this one, and I think I got the hang of it again. It's taken me a few times to just remember how to get everything organized, different levels. Next project I'm going to be doing is building defenses and get my army ready in case something shows up. I am in Untamed Wilds. So let's get started today. Boom. What was this? Oh, we can get rid of that. Get rid of that. There we go. There we go. So there was a Grums tweet that I thought was interesting, and I wanted to bring it up. Wanted to talk about it. It's this one right here, and it's going over doxing, thing that the anti-woke are real familiar with right now, or real familiar with just a little while ago. Jesus Christ, are you just gonna... All right, sorry, my mic is being a little crazy here. Okay. Check. So anyway, Grums came out and with this tweet. During the height of Gamergate, Candace Owens tried to ride the "we're being bullied" anti-GG narrative by opening a doxing site that wanted to silence people. Search social autopsy. We're going to have to look into that. I actually didn't know this, so this is pretty interesting, especially knowing, who Candace Owens is now. I was there and I condemned it and called her out. But since then, people say she's changed. She said it was wrong and that she is on the right now, which is strange. Just that goes into that changing your mind idea that keeps coming up over and over and over again. People quickly changing their mind when it's convenient for them. But I just saw a person riding a wave for attention and money. I still do. I don't agree with her takes on Charlie Kirk and the smearing of his legacy. If the fact comes out that somehow I was wrong, I'll apologize. But given what I've seen, not today. Well, I don't think Candace Owens even knows who Grums is. Maybe they've had some tweets together. Maybe they haven't. I'm not sure. But I found this interesting, like condemning the doxing. Like, why would he condemn the doxing when he himself has participated, right? Asmongold has put out the call for finding game devs mocking or cheering Charlie Kirk's assassination. Post your stuff in this thread if you want to be anon, and send it along, and I'll repost it and put it into the list for myself. Must send verifiable proof. If you guys want to make a list, if I have time tomorrow, I can put them all together in a video with links to their employers. So listen, you can say that the Charlie Kirk section is worse, and I agree with that statement, but in the end, doxing is doxing, period. So if you're once a doxer, always a doxer. You can't say this doxing was right and this doxing was wrong. I'm sorry. That's just who you are, especially now, Grums, with all of your proof. The proof of you doing it. I mean, it didn't take me long to go back and find this tweet, and there's a dozen tweets where he's pulling out devs, saying their full first and last name, just going in to find everyone they can. Don't pretend over here that you condemn doxing when over here you're all about doxing. So I thought that was an interesting thing. Then to add to this little spat, we have Asmongold saying something. Asmongold defends the use of jokes about Charlie Kirk. I've been making jokes about George Floyd for years. Why can't people make jokes about Charlie Kirk? All right.
What do I look like?
You look like Charlie Kirk, bro.
He does. He does. You do. What do you mean? It does look like him. Here's my outlook. I've been making jokes about George Floyd for years. Why can't people make a joke about Charlie Kirk? Fuck. Like, it's one thing to be.
What a funny statement, considering the one game dev that everyone went after in his long list of game devs were about Charlie Kirk. And the one with the one big one that everyone came out with was the girl who said the Mario joke. Right? It was a joke. It doesn't matter if you don't like it, but she was definitely targeted and sent to be doxxed. So let's keep going.
Be doing it the day he gets killed, right? But like people doing it now.
Oh, what's the difference between the day he gets killed and the day after?
Now, like this is a while ago, man. Like, of course you got, like, I make jokes about fucking 9/11. I make jokes about all kinds of bad, like really, really bad stuff that has that happen. So if people complain, big
Americans love a good 9/11 joke.
difference, man? Not really. I mean, I make 9/11 jokes. I make all kinds of jokes like that. But the problem is that I think it's okay, in my opinion, to tell a joke. The problem is whenever some people aren't joking. That's really the issue. And so that's really tell a joke. Which one? You aren't dancing on his grave? Yeah, exactly. Like, you can tell a joke about somebody without necessarily disrespecting them or like saying that it was a good thing that
Okay, so
they died, right?
yeah, there were plenty of people during the George Floyd incident that were saying it was worth it for him to die, that he was just a criminal and things like that. And yeah, I agree that he was a criminal, but you're still dancing on his grave with the George Floyd jokes, right? A out of taste joke is still just that, an out of taste joke. It might be funny. It absolutely might be funny, but even a joke told today about George Floyd or today about 9/11 is still stepping on the graves of what happened there, right?
I mean, definitely. So yeah, Frogan made a 9/11 joke. Who cares? I don't give a fuck. Like, yeah, I make jokes like that all the time. Like, why would I not want to? And yeah, I feel like everybody tries to act like that's a bad thing, but I think that's normal. Everyone was mad over the Hurricane Katrina comment. No, they weren't. People didn't give a fuck about that. So I said that, well, actually, I guess I can't say it again because I got banned, right? But like, I made a joke about Hurricane Katrina because like a lot of the displaced people from Hurricane Katrina came to my high school, and I thought it was funny, and Twitch didn't think it was as funny, and I'm not sorry. I tell that joke again privately. Absolutely. I think it was hilarious, but some people cry about it. Not my fucking problem.
Insane stuff coming from Asmongold at this time. Like, really? You're just basically doing a 180 on what you said before. It's hypocrisy. You made a list of people that you wanted to put together with their employers. Not just video game people, normal, average people, right? Who are you to decide what a joke is and what a joke isn't? Yeah, some of those people were probably being pretty damn serious, but it still could have been a joke on their side. So that's my little bit of anti-woke tent so far today. Just insane stuff coming from the anti-wokes and grums, like suddenly turning 180 on themselves. So, anyway, we're going to get to the meat of it now. The meat of this, what I wanted to talk about.
Who do I look?
Bye. And that's this post that came out. I guess, Elon revealed exactly how the X algorithm works, and it's some pretty insane stuff. It's just crazy what they say in this thread that you have to do to go up in the algorithm, right? I spent the last 14 hours straight reading all 400,000 lines of code for the brand new X algorithm. What I read blew me away. Here's everything you need to know about how to go viral and if you can still get shadow banned. So let's get into this. What do we got here? Boop. Let's start with the most controversial part of the algorithm. For 2 years, from 2 years ago, and I don't know too much about this, tweet cred, which just sounds like a social credit, right? Just a straight social credit to be on X. Many have been asking me for years if it's still a thing. Now we have a definitive answer. Yes. Tweet cred is still everywhere in the code. What is tweet cred and how does it work? So you got tweet cred replace. Where's the rest of it? Let's go back. There we go. Tweet cred is X's reputation system. Gotta love that. It determines your reach. Break the algo rules, your score goes down and your reach disappears. What are the rules for the X algo, though? Glad you asked. Starlink. Post offensive text, 80% reach reduction. That's nuts. Like, what is offensive text? Let's see here. Offensive username, 80% reach reduction. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, is this just slurs? Or is it like if I say fuck in one of my tweets, does it just drop to 0? I kind of want to know. Maybe he'll go into it more. I don't remember if he does. All caps tweet. This is funny. Let's see. That scene is shouting. That scene is shouting. Major penalization. Like, what? So if I do all caps because I'm happy about something, it's considered shouting, and they're gonna, shadow ban me, lower my cred score. Include links. Yep, penalize. This one is nuts to me. Like, why am I like? There's tons of people that are trying to push themselves out there on YouTube, on Twitch, on all these other places. So if you include a link in your post, they're going to drop you, right? It's going to drop you out of the algorithm. That's just absolutely insane to me. Like how like it's completely killing your reach. It's completely killing someone who is actually like trying to grow using X. All streamers, all YouTubers, all this other stuff. And I wonder if it's a ploy to maybe push X to be a better platform to stream on. But that just seems completely against what a lot of content creators are doing on X. It seems this part of the thread is getting boosted, by the way. You can start from the beginning here. It's weird. Like, why this section? Or why this section right here? What are the offensive terms, topics, and words? Conveniently, they've been left out of this code. Hidden in adult tokens.txt. If anyone at X has access to this file, hit your boy up. Of course, you can't know what words could affect your reach in the algorithm. It could be literally anything at this point that they may find. And I'm sure it's ever changing, right? You say something offensive and it's got Charlie Kirk's name in it, deboosts you. But I mean, is it the opposite way if you say something about the left with negative connotations? Would it boost you but not as high? It would be nice if we knew, right? Low text quality, misspelling or tweet like a moron, replying to accounts that don't follow you. What? So why is that decentivizing you? Now, like this one, I guess I suck because I'm dyslexic as hell. So I got to make sure that I'm doing that right. But spammy posts, that makes sense. Spammy posts makes a lot of sense, right? That's just part of the algorithm, just part of, you don't want spam to become a big thing. You'd rather that get desensitized, or not desensitized, deboosted. Being a new account, you start at negative 128 tweep cred when you sign up. You need a minimum score of 17 to be seen. So how do you gain that 17? Like, what do you do to get up if you're not getting anyone to see your stuff? Like, that's weird. But how does shadow banning work? A label gets applied to your account, which destroys your reach. Here are all the labels that can be applied to you. Some interesting ones here. Low quality tweets. What the fuck does that mean? Low quality tweets. Spam, toxicity, untrusted URL. What do you mean untrusted? NSFW. I got it. That makes sense. Gore, or mentioning a person multiple times. That one's weird too. Like, hold on. If I say Spash's name multiple times in one tweet, does that decentivize it? Or do I have to have 2 tweets, right? Negative 15 social score. That's right, Kamoji. Just right now, X is watching my stream and giving me negative social credits. Low quality spamming, recall, duplicate content, duplicate mention, low quality mention. What is a low quality mention? What's a low quality tweet? Spammy tweet, toxicity, abusive. Okay. I would like to determine how they decide if it's abusive or not. Untrusted. Okay. The gore rule is weird because the Charlie Kirk video was auto playing like crazy as fuck. That is true. It got boosted heavily. Maybe it just overcome the algorithm because so many people were posting it. I don't know. I have no idea. Downrank spam, NSFW high precision, gore and violence, high precision, NSFW reported. Gore and violence reported. NSFW card. Is there more? Limited engagement basic rules. This is so nuts. What else do we got here? Also, the way people engage with your posts can hurt you. That if someone says not interested in this tweet, see fewer posts like this, you get reported, blocked, or muted. You get deboosted for 3 months for getting muted or blocked. That's fucking crazy. Like, someone, now with this information out, I wonder if we're going to see people trying to mass block somebody to try and desensitize, or to try to deboost them. I don't know why I keep saying desensitize. That's nuts. Okay, we talked about how you get deboosted. Let's talk about how you get boosted. Bot army to mute and block someone to boost them. Yeah, that's exactly what you're going to see happen to people. Like, it just doesn't. This doesn't make. Well, one, you probably there's a reason you probably shouldn't reveal this kind of information, because it's already, once you know the code, people can start abusing the code, right? So how do we get boosted? Post a video. If people watch it for more than 10 seconds, you get a massive boost. Time to game the system. That's right. We love gaming the system here. We love it. Post a video. If people watch it for more than 10 seconds, you get a massive boost. So I just got to start posting more videos then. Maybe I'll start cutting out clips of my stream raw and just start posting them on X. See if that helps. Dwelling on your text posts also helps. Dwelling on, if people spend 2 seconds looking at your post, it'll be pushed more. I can actually say that I have noticed this. So lately I've been tweeting less, but I have been making larger statements. I'm about to start posting barbecue videos. Hey, you know what? Get that. But don't worry, I'm gonna have everybody block and mute you to desensitize or to deboost those damage. It's gonna be a war. If people spend 2+ seconds looking at your post, it'll be pushed more. Like I said, this one's more because I have started doing like just longer tweets about different subjects. I might post something there, but usually I talk about it a little bit, and those ones tend to go a lot more viral. I'm getting closer and closer to like 1,000 likes, and I'm getting more and more impressions from it. But I also don't cuss as much, and I haven't said slurs in a while, so maybe that helps. Let's see here. Quotes and bookmarks are also massive too. Yeah, I've noticed that the ones that get, which makes sense, right? If people are quote tweeting like this part does make sense. If people are watching your video for, an amount of time, if they're reading your posts, and if they're quoting it, then yeah, it should get seen to a further audience. It's just like that's the engagement. That's people saying they want to see this. A few other ways to get boosted. Of course, the blue check mark is huge. If you don't have one, you're toast. Legacy verified accounts get an additional boost. This one's weird. So like people who have been on Twitter forever have the legacy account. And my brain, my conspiracy theory brain is like, can they just put this tag on somebody, or is it set for a certain amount of time that you've been online? Being considered a viral account boosts you too. Send post viral and you'll be prioritized. I get it. That makes sense. Like if you get a bunch of impressions, but I think the big problem with that one is you're going to get to the point that accounts are so big that they're just blotting out everybody else. I mean, you look at like Ian Miles Chung, who gets, millions and millions of impressions, and most of his shit is stealing other people's stuff, like straight ripping them from other posts and then making his own tweet about it. So because he's bigger, he's already going to get more. So it's like once you start getting bigger, it starts to snowball until like you just get all the attention. It's kind of sad how the state of the internet is. It has turned into people calling each other Nazis and commies even more rampant than before. Oh yeah, it's horrible. It just everyone doing it. But is Nazi a bad word? Is that one that's going to get you offensive terms, topics, and words? We don't know. Oh, massive too. Yeah, like this shouldn't be a thing. Viral accounts shouldn't be a thing. If people look at your content and want it, that should have been the 2 words. Yeah. Like it's because it just means that the people at the top are always going to be at the top because they're always going to get pushed out. They're always going to get impressions and people are going to like it. The biggest ones hey, look there. Excuse me. There's Grizzle. Biggest one that ruined this site, especially when he said it was supposed to be an even playing field. But of course, that was another lie. Yeah, exactly. I agree. I don't know why I did that. It's not an equal playing field. If you're already on top, you will continue to be on top. So everyone else at the bottom is just feeding for impressions, or at least anyone who's trying to use it for, a medium to, spread their other accounts. Like, me, I post my links to my YouTube stuff. So that tweet just gets, I've noticed it never gets a lot of impressions. Like, let me put it, let's look at that one here. Boom. Yeah, it's got 5 impressions and 9 views. So yeah, if you post a link, it just kills your look. What I might start doing is doing this and then put like link in bio, or the trick is to post the link as a reply. I did. That's a reply. And it still has gotten like no impressions. No quote. Oh, well, it's not telling me. It's still got nothing. And that's a reply. Or maybe it's all considered one tweet. I need to send it out first and then reply. Or maybe send it out beforehand and then link it later after it's started to gain some traction. Maybe that's it. I'll try that next time and see if I get a better engagement with it, I guess. Spoiler alerts. So here are some insights. Avoid offensive language at all costs. Build your reputation score. That's just so like, it's so Chinese credit score. It's not even funny. I can't even tell you how fucked that is. Like, the people who are already on top will always be on top, and that's never going to change. So the site will never be fair for anyone else, unless you happen to go viral quite a few times and build that viral thing to you. But for that, you have to get impressions. Now, I mean, I've had one tweet go viral. I've had one go viral and went crazy. And I got, a decent amount of updates and things like that from it. But I'm pretty sure you have to be consistent as you do it. Avoid offensive language at all costs. Build your reputation score. Preserve it at all costs. See, and this is just where people are going to like mid-maxing the posts. They're going to be mid-maxing or min-maxing, excuse me, their posts to try and get the maximum amount of engagement. And this site's going to get worse for it. If it can get any worse. My understanding, based on what I've noticed, links don't deboost if they are on a post with an image or a video. Really? I'm going to test it out. Friday, I'm going to not put the link in my post because I do use my picture, and very rarely does it seen. Fake engagement is about to skyrocket. Yes, it is, because now these people know how to engage with the algorithm, and they'll just slop is going to be on top again. Yeah, we'll test it a little bit. I'll test it out on Friday. I won't put the link in. Maybe I'll say link pinned in the bio or something like that, and see if that post gets more engagement than this last post, right? And I'll compare. We'll compare them on stream. Get good engagement. Quotes and bookmarks are massive. Like, but how do you do that? You just have to make stuff that people want to repost. Quality is greater than quantity. Yeah, I've kind of, I know like some people like just constantly tweet, and I'm noticing that isn't helping them at all. The scariest thing about free speech is no matter how important it is still easily abused. Yes, that's part of it. That's part of free speech. We have to always be careful. And I'm not a person that believes in all speech is free speech, but the vast majority of speech, I think, is free speech. when it comes down to it. Usually I relate my speech to like actual harm caused is where I kind of start drawing the line. And not that, you know, I got my feelings hurt kind of stuff, like true like harassment, things like that is where free speech stops for me. So one day I was literally venting about Grok about how humanity's free will was flawed and destructive. Sorry that my hate of our species. Sorry, that's my hate for our species talking. Yeah, I get it. I get it. People are absolutely dumb. It's fucking terrible. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Don't be an asshole. Getting muted can crush you. Get a blue check mark, of course. Give Elon more money. And yes, I know I have a blue check mark, but I did it because I like to yap long sentences, and I didn't want to have to do it in the replies. And create content that takes longer than 2 seconds to read. We about to see everybody writing paragraphs, paragraph after paragraph of just filler. Thank you for bringing attention to this matter. Lastly, these most likely won't be necessarily in the long run, as Elon hinted that the algorithm will be replaced with Grok analyzing posts. Currently, there are several improvements since the lightweight version of Grok was implemented. The X recommendation algorithm is being replaced with a lightweight version of Grok. So will soon be dramatically better. I don't know that that's going to be better, man. Grok is a people pleaser at best. You should notice improvement already. I mean, if he's already done it, I have noticed more growth lately, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm very skeptical about that. So, long story short, the algorithm is fucked. Grok's going to take over and save us. And incoming slop. I wonder how Grok's going to determine if a post should go viral, right? And what if Grok turns Mega Hitler again? Is he going to start pushing content like that over and over and over again? Guess we will see. Guess we will see. All right. So that is the YouTube algorithm and how it's been, I guess, changed and updated. And just how fucked it really is to try and get any engagement on here. If you're already up at the top, you know, you have it easy. There's no fighting for that engagement. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and do a little shill for engagement. I see we've got people in the chat who haven't liked the video. If you could like the video, it would help me out so much. Helps boost me in the algorithm for more people to see my content and enjoy what we've got. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, YouTube algorithm, because I want you to like the YouTube stream. Damaged. I got my shills right. If you're liking the content you see, please hit me a subscribe. We are working to try and get to 200. That is my next goal. And every sub is appreciated. All right. Now we're going to move on to a different subject. Last stream, we watched a Birdman video on the word grifter. And I actually believe in this idea of the word grifter being more media grifter. I'm going to start using media grifting more because I think it does absolutely fall into all of it. I guess being suspended indefinitely, apparently forever on X, was a blessing. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be just a fight to go with. I can't believe that it's indefinitely. Like, I don't understand how that works. Do they think you were a bot? That's the only reason I could see it outside of like saying something really horrendous. But speaking of, EGAD in the chat, also known as Sigma to some of us, sent me a video on the Birdman that he made. I don't know that we'll watch. Well, it's an hour. We may end up not getting to my second video, hour and 26 minutes on the Birdman. So from there, we're going to watch this and we're going to see if Sigma changes my mind on the Birdman, see if he calls out some decent hypocrisies and goes from there. Yeah, for some reason they thought I was a bot. There was I think Grizzle was getting like a similar thing where they thought he might be a bot, but I guess he passed the checks and they moved on. Like it sounds like that bot algorithm was really fucked. Maybe they've adjusted it. I haven't noticed anybody getting taken down. So excuse me. We will see. We will see. While we're watching this, of course, I'm going to be playing some Dwarf Fortress. Like I said earlier, I deleted my old fort that I was doing on stream, but we're going to stick to this one. I got a head start. This one's really a lot more organized. I'm starting to figure out how it goes. Or figuring out the organization process. I got good food going down here, boop, and then my living quarters and my workshop that I'm starting to build on. I'm also about to build defenses, so something for you ADHD people while I listen to this, which I have a ghost, which means I need to make a tomb. Let's see. While we watch this video of the EGAD.
Any non-adherence to objective value in creative design is tantamount to artistic suicide. Fundamentally, the progressive types know that this is true, and anyone who denies their belief in objective value will still adhere to some form of objectivity. This is regardless of any insistence to the contrary. These days, however, the progressive types will call their adherence to an objective value media literacy, and they are prone to becoming incensed when anyone deviates from
I've been bot/span labeled a few times, but it went away in a week or so. Yeah, it seems like EGAD just got hit. I don't know. And there's no way for you to reapply or do anything like that. That's just strange.
Media literacy as a standard. If one cannot talk about objective reality without using words that directly pertain to objective reality, then other words will be found. This all must be kept in mind when anyone remarks on someone else's media literacy. Adherence to media literacy is a demand for compliance to specific modes of thoughts and feelings when it comes to media analysis, regardless of the fact that this flies directly in the face of the everything is subjective worldview. And this is at the root of all the frustrations expressed.
Okay, that's already, like, I've never really liked the word media literacy because it's all art, and some people can, like horror movies, right? Some people can enjoy a horror movie just for what it is, even though there might be a different meaning behind it. I don't think you need to have the media literacy to know the specific back end thing of what the horror movie is saying. So yeah, sometimes I think this gets overused.
By the YouTuber Th3Birdman, as he addresses the content perpetuated by the YouTuber, The Critical Drinker. This is regardless of whatever intent that Birdman asserts motivates his responses to Critical Drinker. Birdman's video is essentially a demand. Birdman, jealous of a performer he deems of lesser intelligence than he is, made a video bemoaning the fact that the subjective opinion of a drunken Scottish YouTuber personality is not consistent with his vapid current year mindset, his media literacy. With my video here, I'm going to run through several things said by Birdman, showing that most of what he says is contradictory and largely consists of his own projections, including, funnily enough, his own accusations of projection. I'll begin by saying Birdman is another one of these enlightened centrists. Unlike Short Fat Otaku, however, Birdman is really bad at hiding his progressive tendencies. And funnily enough, despite his alleged apolitical worldview, he becomes becomes really, really talkative when right-wingers start to win.
Start to win. That's interesting.
Birdman begins this video essay talking about the illusory truth effect, and he does this even before he starts telling his audience about what he supposedly believes in. I say supposedly because I can take or leave most of this.
The illusory truth effect is a phenomenon that was first detailed in a 1977 study. It's the inclination of people to believe false information after being exposed to that false information many times. Repeated exposure to lies caused the false information to feel familiar to the participants. In that study, they found out that the more familiar the information feels, the more likely that familiarity overpowers a person's rationality. This is a powerful psychological tool that grifters employ on their audience, and its effects are seen every single day. How many times have you heard vaccines cause autism or go woke, go broke? There is a reason these people repeat these mantras over and over, even in the face of conflicting evidence, and that's because repeating false information makes it more likely to be believed. What's up, everyone? It's your friendly neighborhood Birdman here. Today, I'm going to question why people believe this grifter and show you precisely why you shouldn't. Due to the kinds of people this video is sure to attract, I think I need to put my cards on the table. Firstly, I am not a political type. I rarely, if ever, bring up politics, and when I do, it's usually to make fun of them, left or right. For this behavior, I have been routinely called right-wing and left-wing by people who make politics their entire...
Okay, here in this statement, like I've done this before, but I think we can say that like you don't have to tell people that you've been called from both sides. Just speak your mind and let them do their thing and go with it, because they're never going to believe you. And like I said, I've done this before. This is something that I probably need to stop doing as well. Just being like both sides argument.
Higher identity. My position is that political folk are mirror images of each other, participating in the Spider-Man meme, where they blame each other for doing exactly what they themselves are doing, something the drinker is heavily guilty of.
Birdman is talking about himself, and talking about yourself is the most biased action anyone can take. And yes, that will be ironic later because he insists he's all about reason and facts and science and math. But his talking about himself here runs against his projected understanding about illusory truth. What I mean by that is that Birdman's self-description necessarily relies on his audience simply believing what he says, taking it at face value, rather than allowing his audience to come to their own conclusions about whatever he says based on the arguments that he presents.
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
This is no different than beginning your commentary with the phrase, "Trust me, bro." This just makes me think that you're lying because people whose goal is to set the record straight on something or want to keep their audience's eyes on the prize would just go straight into their commentary and create a tautology by which their audience can discern what is true and what is not for themselves. Instead, what Birdman is doing is establishing a parasocial relationship with his audience. Oh, you know me so well. I would never lie to you. I don't believe in X, Y, and Z. So if you think that's what's going on, based on anything I say, you're wrong. Stop thinking for yourselves and think about this the way I tell you to. Now, Birdman has the...
I think that's a little bit of a reach. Like, I understand, yeah, he is talking up itself, which goes kind of against the grain of just letting people come to the conclusion for themselves. But I don't know if you could say it's in the idea of trying to become parasocial. There would need to be more things that he's done to try and build up his audience. Because while he's saying those things, you can still, like, does he have to preface it by say, go look at my other stuff and find out for yourself? Or what would he have to say to not be, for that not to be considered hypocrisy? It's very common for someone to over-explain themselves. It would be hard-pressed for me to think it's just automatically a lie.
tendency to boast about his IQ.
Now that is fucking cringe. Like, I don't give a fuck if you're smart, people are dumb too. This is very representative of what's that guy? Master of TDS, where he just tells people how smart he is and how he went to college and how he's a therapist and he's smarter than you. It's dumb. I don't need to know your IQ.
His intelligence, a whole lot. Therefore, I assume that he thinks his general audience is not as discerning as he is. So he has to tell them exactly what they are supposed to think about what he says before he even says it. And the problem with all of this is that this is still guiding people based on their emotions, not their intelligence. Think about it. If a guy spends the first few minutes of a video telling you what thoughts and feelings you ought to have before you've heard any arguments at all, what is he appealing to? He does this on several occasions throughout the video as well, particularly when he takes an aside to talk about Nick Fuentes, and he front loads that commentary by immediately asserting a interjection before he said anything about Fuentes in general. This all counts on the emotional and gut reactionaries in his audience rather than anyone capable of intellectual discernment. So why, Birdman, do you promote your intellect while you also rely on these appeals to the emotions of your audience?
The only side I'm on is reason, logic, facts, science, and math. So believe me, when I criticize this very obviously right-wing chud, I'm doing so out of the spirit and integrity.
I'll give you this. He does show comments and he does search for his name quite a bit. I think you could cut down on that.
Of unbiased media discourse, which is something I care about deeply. Less important, but still worth a mention, I'm not doing this out of jealousy or an attempt to clout chase. I've been calling out a much bigger YouTuber for nearly 7 years. For me, this is simply calling out another bad critic.
Many of these online personalities establish a parasocial relationship with their audiences before they talk about anything in their videos. This adds unearned substance to whatever they say, in which case you may...
I would argue that people like to mistake emotions for intelligence. Since people tend to get emotional, I even told Grok that I wouldn't mind an AI being the middle voice, cold logic. Yeah, I mean, I could see that, but sometimes you have to have the emotional response to it. Like, cold logic doesn't always work for it. And I think we are far from a cold logic intelligent AI, because AI is not designed that way now. Rock, how do I engrave? Let's see here.
Find you're compelled to agree with whatever they say by default, regardless of how well reasoned their arguments are.
I think it's silly to adhere to political sides because at some point in time, you're going to have to defend nonsense to maintain the integrity of being on that side.
Adhering to politics is a basic practice for any everyday common citizen in most first world countries. After all, we do live in a world governed by the state, and the state is run by politicians whose policies are based about substantive axioms. And in the digital world, politics has become psychopolitical, to borrow a phrase from Byung-Chul Han. Let me establish a working definition moving forward, just in case anyone tends to get confused or frustrated when anyone talks about politics. Politics is any method by which people act that is sufficient enough to change an established social order. In which case, if you do run a large YouTube channel and you are pushing for any substantive change, then saying you are not political is by nature contradictory. I mean, for what reason does your influencer YouTube channel exist other than to influence? And if you address politics under this definition, a lot of things start to make sense. And depending on the scale of various movements of influence, we therefore attribute names to those movements. Conservative or liberal are good examples, and less substantive examples are alt-right or Antifa. One of the primary reasons why people assert that they are apolitical, however, is because they are statists. They are comfortable enough with the current established order that they are obliged to disinvite any change to it. This as opposed to the everything is political crowd who want to revolutionize everything. And this is why many will have appropriately regarded people like Birdman or Short Fat Otaku as leftists or statists, regardless of their protestations. While they may think that they're above the confines of a political struggle. They are essentially in favor of the status quo, which is governed by the progressive left.
I agree, Damage
And this is
Sector.
also why when any of these centrist types are pushed on their beliefs, they will default to the extreme left. Many of these centrists are controlled opposition, and we know this in part because they are constantly obliged to push back against social change by otherwise adhering to the current political regime. And they are statists insofar as their rhetoric is in favor of the progressive state and many of its modern institutions. And the bulk of their rhetoric will pivot on the axis of bigotry. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, that's something I explained in my video, Diversity is a Moral Mandate. To briefly summarize, we live amidst a Fifth Republic, which was established by the Civil Rights Act.
Aaron McIntyre and the guys from the Good Old Boys podcast suggest that we're now living in a Fifth Republic. The first person I heard criticize the Civil Rights Act was Rand Paul. Then I saw Pastor Doug Wilson echoing those criticisms. But until I read Christopher Caldwell's book, The Age of Entitlement, I didn't realize how much it had transformed the country. Caldwell argues that they had inadvertently voted themselves a second constitution without explicitly repealing the one they had. Each constitution contained guarantees. But the Civil Rights Act made it the job of the government to root out inequality, which means rooting out bias. What we call political correctness is the natural outcome of civil rights, which makes fighting bias a condition for the legitimacy of the state. Once bias is held to be part of the unconscious of human nature, there are no areas of human life in which the state's vigilance is not called for. So this is the republic we live in now, and whatever you call it, it's not the 1789 constitutional order.
This means that the only metric for good and evil in much of the Western world is your capacity for bigotry. As such, everyone who is a statist will inevitably obsess over various isms like racism or sexism. The reason for this obsession is because they know state power is invested in rooting out all biases, and so they will repeatedly insist on their own victimhood, while simultaneously bludgeoning anyone who dares challenge the status quo. And what has often been said about people like this is that if they lived in Germany in 1933, they would readily align themselves with the dominant political party. Now, if our lives are defined by our struggle against...
I mean, the way politics are today, no one is willing to, I feel like no one's willing to have a nuanced take. It seems like everybody would just follow the status quo. But then again, what's that test that was done after World War II where they pretended to shock people and most people would go along with it because the testers told them to?
Against rulers, authorities, and the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms, then of course this Fifth Republic, which is currently manifested by the progressive state, is in fact the enemy of humanity.
The only side I'm on is reason, logic, facts, science, and math. So believe me, when I criticize this very obviously right-wing chud, I'm doing so out of the spirit and integrity of unbiased media discourse, which is something I care about deeply.
Well, there you see, he told us that he cares about this stuff deeply. Therefore, he must be telling the truth, right? You just need to tell your audience that you're a good person, that you care about whatever you're talking about, and like magical fairy dust, it gives substance to whatever you say next. No, we're about 3 minutes into his video at this point, and all he's been doing so far is building himself up. As far as I know, Drinker never does this. Drinker just goes straight into talking about a movie or whatever the topic is. But Birdman is unable to create such a tautology, and therefore he needs to tell you what to think. And that means putting you into a receptible state of mind. But this is short-sighted because Birdman essentially runs his own channel by the same playbook as Drinker does. It's all psychopolitical, made to create a bastion for the culture warriors in one's audience. What you need to watch out for here is any rhetoric that attends to this notion that the commentator is somehow being attacked by both sides.
I have been routinely called right-wing and left-wing by people who make politics their entire identity.
This is another trust me bro statement used to make...
Yeah, okay. To be fair, everyone likes to virtue signal even if people don't believe themselves to do it. True, but there's also this thing like it's a good point to point out the fact that he does at the beginning of every video talk about I'm behind reason and logic, things like this. You don't have to repeat yourself over and over and over again with that, right? I don't think I've seen a single video where he hasn't done that. But you're right. Pretty much everybody who says they're not virtue signaling in some way is virtue signaling by just the pure idea of whatever you're talking about.
Make one think that the speaker is completely neutral and unbiased. And Birdman does this to disarm his audience. And he must disarm his audience lest his arguments fail to hold up.
My position is that political folk are mirror images of each other, participating in the Spider-Man meme, where they blame each other for doing exactly what they themselves are doing, something the
It becomes
drinker
different
is heavily
shades.
guilty
Yeah,
of.
I agree.
This is a fallacy also adhered to by people like Short Fat Otaku. The idea here is that being apolitical affords you some kind of enlightened state of mind free from the constraints of a political dichotomy. Once again, Birdman is relying on his own illusory truth effect well into place at this point, that being that dissociation from political affiliation somehow makes one more enlightened. And as I mentioned before, this is a fallacy because the progressive state holds power right now. Adamantly standing against any change to the status quo inherently favors the powers that be, the progressive left. Projection also colors most everything Birdman says in this video. Insofar as he has a short list of isms to throw into a commentary in lieu of actual argumentation, he himself continually slips into establishing his own sets of biases. And that's also part of his own illusory truth effect. While being biased against anyone who adheres to party politics, he simultaneously claims to be unbiased. At the root of most of these issues is a lack of education and a repeated utilization of a party rhetoric. Call your opponents racist enough times until it sticks. Birdman also has no clear concept of what politics are or what being unbiased means.
Yeah, this is true. It's kind of two sides of the same coin. You call them racist, and this has been a problem I have said about Birdman over and over again, and why I'm very specific about calling people grifters and things like that. I still think his media grifter is a better analogy for it, you know, for what the anti-woke are doing. But you can't just call someone racist. It loses all facets of strength behind it just to do it. Like, are they actually racist? Like, are they actually boots, you know, stopping Nazis or other things like that? No, they may just be saying statements that sound incredibly racist, and you can come to the conclusion after a while, people can, that they are racist, but that doesn't change the truth of it, right?
And to that I will not even attribute ignorance. This is malice. Not only does he not understand what he's talking about, he doesn't care. Lying works for him, and so he continues to do so. YouTube rewards him for it, so why should he stop?
That out of the way, it's difficult to know where to even start with this guy.
Is it lying? I mean, I don't know that I would call what he's doing lying. Like, he's definitely virtue signaling to set up the audience. But from his point of view, he could definitely think that someone's racist. That doesn't necessarily mean that he thinks they're lying, right? He may not even see the hypocrisy in doing so when the anti-woke will call you woke or, you know, a lefty or a true, well, let's not say that, or any other thing that they come up with, you know, that's sexist, homophobic, whatever you want to call it, right? It comes to two sides of the same coin. You've got Birdman, who will call Critical Drinker a racist for his takes, and then you'll have Critical Drinker who will get mad at a black person in a show, or may even call somebody a name, or make, you know, a joke that probably sounds racist. So, yeah.
He is absolutely rich with misinformation, outright lies, and baffling takes that don't stand up to even an ounce of scrutiny.
So why specifically say the word misinformation rather than say Critical Drinker is lying, or perhaps simply mistaken? Need it be said that the term misinformation has become a very politically charged word in recent years? I would reckon if you wanted to downplay your adherence to politics that you would change your language in such a way that you don't start to sound like you're parroting mainstream talking points. But that is illusory truth. Just keep saying misinformation like you've heard on the mainstream news over and over again until it sticks.
And my
Calling him a liar, I don't think fits in most cases because it's not straight up lying, right? We look at Ghosts of Yotai as an example and how the anti-woke will take numbers that are true and misinterpret them, right? Smash JT throwing it through an algorithm and then pretending. Like, is it full out lying? No. I don't like the term misinformation any more than anyone else. Because it is politically charged, but calling him a liar, I think, would be too much. You have to find something that fits. And unfortunately, misinformation fits really well into the context of what most of these people are doing.
Last video, I played an excerpt from his infamous Across the Spider-Verse video.
Also, I can't shake the feeling that the script is doing everything in its power to play down Peter Parker, like it's afraid the audience will somehow start rooting for him over Miles if he's shown to be too capable and confident. The first movie portrayed him as an aging, burned out loser who only redeems himself at the end, while the second film morphs him into a bumbling, hapless father in a pink bathrobe who for some reason keeps taking his baby along on life-threatening adventures despite having a perfectly capable mother at home to look after it. Is this some weird attempt to mock and belittle the Spider-Man that most people know and love, who incidentally just happens to be the only straight white man in the entire movie? I don't know, man, it just kinda leaves a sour taste in my mouth, that's all.
The first thing you'll notice if you've seen that movie is that he's just blatantly incorrect. Peter B. Parker is not the only straight white male in the film. In fact, there are many of them, quite a few of them variants of Peter Parker himself. More importantly, there is a prominent supporting character that is the motivation for Spider-Gwen's entire arc.
Now, Drinker specifically said mock and belittle the Spider-Man that most people know and love. Everything that follows must be taken within that context. The most charitable interpretation here is that when Drinker says he is the only straight white male in the film, Drinker is implying that he is the only straight white male who matters, insofar as his role in the story goes. But the real problem with this analysis is that Drinker never marries himself to his own criticisms, and that's something Birdman completely overlooks. What Drinker is doing here is what is known as a seeming, which is not an argument. Listen specifically to what Drinker says here.
Is this some weird attempt to mock and belittle the Spider-Man that most people know and love, who incidentally just happens to be the only straight white man in the entire movie? I don't know, man, it just kinda leaves a sour taste in my mouth, that's all.
That's where I would stick him to the wall on this. Is this happening or is it not happening, Drinker? And this is where the grift is really coming from, and Birdman completely misses it. Drinker did not make an argument here, and therefore this is not worth responding to. If anything, what Drinker is doing is planting a seed in the minds of his audience. But he didn't make any actual criticism here. The reason what Drinker is doing is dishonest is because you could ask yourself any questions pertaining to a seeming and nothing would change. For example, I could be like, Birdman uses the Blanca avatar from Street Fighter. Well, Street Fighter is a Capcom game. Is Birdman a Capcom shill? Is Capcom paying him money to promote their products? I don't know, man. It leaves a sour taste in my mouth. That is a fallacy. It is known as a seeming. And that's what Drinker is doing. He doesn't say the film is doing what it's doing, but he asks himself a question pertaining to the seeming, as if that adds legitimacy to it. But since he says he doesn't know, it just means he made no determinations and therefore no argument was made.
I don't know, man, it just kinda leaves a sour taste in my mouth, that's all.
If no argument is made, no rebuttal is necessary.
The less obvious observation is that Will...
Yeah, I think that's a better explanation for what Drinker does as a whole. I think you can respond to it and point out what, like you just pointed out with it, that it is just a seeming, because your average viewer isn't going to come up with that. They're going to think the words that were said and be like, yeah, it's woke because, you know, the straight white man. As for like the white man part, when it comes to that, it may be that, you know, I haven't watched the movie, that Spider-Man is the only important white man in there, but it's still a lie to come out and say it. He should have just said the only important white man. It's very, very, assumption is a natural human flaw. Yeah, I agree, Redstain. It feels very, very deliberate to say he's the only white male, because if there are other white males in the film, whether they're side characters or a main character, they're still there. They're still part of it. You know, does it, if the side characters aren't getting, if all the male white characters aren't getting the same treatment as Spider-Man, is it part of the show, or is it Spider-Man's arc that they're trying to go with? I know in the first one he was very depressive. You know, there were the problems. He was basically not wanting to do anything. Is that just part of the arc they were trying to build? Sadly, some people can take advantage of that and twist your words. Yeah, exactly. It's trying to rally his audience. Yeah, it's very specific words used to rally the audience. Even though it is a fallacy, most people don't like. I am retarded when it comes to fallacies in a lot of ways. I just try and break apart the argument, and I don't know that I'm always right. Maybe Sigma will make a video on me and how hypocritical I am. But it's like you call out the fallacy, but there are things within the fallacy that seem like lies to, again, rally his audience.
Is a race baiter. The Spider-Verse films, while featuring a black protagonist, do not contain the themes of race relations.
Well, if a critical drinker is a race baiter, you took the bait.
Congratulations.
True. I take
Jokes
the bait all the
aside,
time.
Birdman is projecting yet again. Whether or not Critical Drinker is race baiting by utilizing a talking point concerning Spider-Man's race still has nothing to do with the fact that Drinker never lands the criticism anyway. Let me assert something based on my own coverage of the Critical Drinker. Will Jordan is uncomfortable being straightforward about this topic and is indeed only addressing it because he knows that is what is expected of his channel. And again, this is just me being charitable. What I consider there, however, is the zeitgeist, which I talked about in my video. Diversity is a moral mandate. Online discourse is fraught with petty projections of power based on identity. The only group, however, who are not allowed to engage in such projections are white people, and that's key to understanding where Birdman is coming from. He really is not upset that Critical Drinker is race baiting because Birdman also engages in race baiting.
People from my own community, the black community, my own community, the black community, there is no such thing as race, the black community. There's the human race, the black community.
Will is a race baiter, a black man and an Asian woman, respectively.
Remember, I'm very scientifically minded. Like, this is my whole thing is science, facts, logic, reason, the black community. Oh, and math.
Will is a race baiter, a black man and an Asian woman, respectively.
In science, there's no such thing as different races. It's not a thing, okay?
Will is a race baiter, a black man and an Asian woman, respectively.
There's the human race, the black community.
Will is a race baiter, a black man and an Asian woman, respectively.
A different race means a different species. It's
we
another
got
word
the
for
point.
a species. There's the human race, the black community.
Will is a race baiter, a black man and an Asian woman, respectively.
The species is what allows something to breed. There's the human race, the black community.
Will is a race baiter, a black man and an Asian woman, respectively.
So,
You
for
probably
example,
could have cut out about
Poodle could
2 minutes of this.
theoretically mate with the black community.
The reality
that
is
last one was
Birdman is
funny.
upset because
That was
Drinker
funny.
is race baiting on behalf of white people.
Will's goal with many of his film reviews is to galvanize his mostly male, mostly white, and mostly straight audience around the idea that they are being attacked for being those three things.
There is no such thing as race.
Mostly white.
There's the human race.
I think the upbringing surrounding the neighborhoods help. Also see the two sides of Critical and Birdman. Yeah, it is. It's wait, let me read that again because I think I read it. I interpreted it wrong. I think the upbringing, surroundings, and neighborhoods help. Yeah, well, it builds like your bias with things, your family, the people you hang out with, your zone, and people can break from that, but a lot of times they don't. It also helps to see the two sides of Birdman and Critical. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree, like that first part where he does immediately go to the race baiting all the time. And the very basic comment saying that, it's the only white guy in the show, that's definitely a race bait. But he could have better broken down all of the rest of the argument the way Edgar did here to kind of show how much they're lying, right? That's one thing I've tried to do. I try to be good at is when, right now, what's his face? Smash is doing his slop stuff. Like I'm not commenting on every single time he chat GPT's game character because it's just lowbrow, low quality tweets, we'll say. It also follows under the same content thing. But if I do say something about it, I at least try to explain my theories behind it. Same thing on here. I try to put my biases aside. It helps. Yeah, it's hard to, though, right? It's very hard to put your biases aside. You have to actively be thinking about it. And I'm not a quick on the mind brain, even though I do reaction content. Sometimes I think about it later and I was like, well, maybe it's more like this. And that just takes practice and time.
Mostly white.
Phenotypical differences are a thing. Absolutely. Races are not.
Mostly white. The more astute of you will then ask, well, why even bring that up at all? And therein lies the problem.
This is a fallacy known as rhetorical affirmation. It's like Critical Drinker making a seeming remark, but what characterizes this is that Birdman is asking an invisible audience a pointed question which he then answers.
The more astute of you will then ask, well, why even bring that up at all?
Rhetorical affirmations trick you into thinking that the speaker is smarter than he actually is. The speaker is creating a parasocial attachment under the premise that he is engaging with his audience.
Here he is doing the same thing to the Batman.
There seems to be a bit of a debate going on about whether or not this movie is woke, mainly because of the demographics of certain characters. And to be fair, there is a bit of evidence to support this claim. If I was a cynical man, I'd say it's kind of interesting that the rich, corrupt scumbags targeted by the Riddler all happen to be straight, white, middle-aged men, but hey, I guess that's just a total coincidence.
Seriously, what the fuck does this movie have to do with race?
Note that again, Drinker hasn't made an argument here. He mentions there is a debate going on. Okay, where? Among whom? There's no specifics. A bunch of children playing outside his house could be debating this for all we know, and it wouldn't make this statement any less true. Nevertheless, anything that follows is immaterial because it isn't even coming from Drinker. It's coming from some invisible debaters he referenced anecdotally.
And to be fair, there is a bit of evidence to support this claim.
What claim? Who made it? What is the exact basis for this claim? Birdman, the guy who says he cares so much about facts, won't ask these simple questions.
If I was a cynical man,
That's
I'd
fair.
say it's kind of
That's a
interesting
fair
that the
statement.
rich, corrupt scumbags targeted by the Riddler all happen to be straight, white, middle-aged men, but hey, I guess that's just a total coincidence.
And that's as close to an assertion as you can get. But even there, Drinker made an addendum, which was that he would only say all this if he were a cynical man. So again, that isn't even an argument. Now, you could argue he's being coy with his language here, but that doesn't change the fact that at face value, he makes no argument and makes no appropriate assertion, and therefore one need not be obliged to rebut. However, Birdman continually activates Drinker's trap cards.
He has straight white men in his mouth so often you'd think he was an escort. If he applied even a little of that gray matter, maybe he'd come to the conclusion that most rich people in our society tend to be white men. The Riddler was going after police officers and politicians, and again, in our society, they tend to be white.
There is no such thing as race.
What Drinker is asking for here is diversity, but only amongst the villains of the film.
No, Drinker wasn't asking for anything. He anecdotally referenced an argument, talked about a claim which he didn't define, and made an assertion contingent on his hypothetically being a cynical man. Nevertheless, Birdman proceeds right into fact-check mode.
Yeah, but to be fair, it's just easier to call him a racist, right? Your audience will love it.
Without any hindsight into the fact that part of the reason grift works is because people like Birdman scrutinize this as meticulously as he does. Birdman also makes direct reference to Wikipedia, which, as we know, can be edited by anyone and everyone. And Wikipedia even includes a disclaimer notifying you that it ought not be sourced academically.
Remember, I'm very scientifically minded. Like, this is my whole thing is science, facts, logic, reason.
In addition, regardless of previously asserting his apolitical stance, he specifically provides a picture of Republican politicians when he references white politicians.
I am not a political type. I rarely, if ever, bring up politics.
The problem with Birdman's approach is that even though he thinks he's attending to a con, he assumes the con is based in political ideology. In other words, he thinks Drinker is being inconsistent within his own rhetoric, when the fact of the matter is that Drinker is trying to play to more than one side. This is duplicitous. Birdman needs to realize that Drinker's previous spiel was less than definitive, and the reason for that was specifically to ensure that Drinker can't be pinned down to any pro-white stance. In that manner, Drinker can also be everything every viewer wants to see in him, and that, in part, is where the grift is. Now, what Birdman ought to acknowledge is that the world around him is fed up with the current weight of progressive ideology. Over the past few years, the progressive state cranked up the heat on the boiling frogs, and those side effects are coming to bear.
The West used to be more or less homogenous. Now it's not. And we're not going to have a politics that is everyone else votes in bloc, everyone else has ethnic identity except for people of European origin. That is not going to happen. And once they do start seeing themselves that way, that's going to trigger a whole heck of a bunch of other questions about the last 60 years and the ideology that got us here. And I would like to have that conversation in a way that minimizes harm and maximizes well-being for all races. But I don't think there's a way out of that conversation.
But this is essentially what Birdman's videos are, in addition to channels like Actual Fandom and those adjacent to them. This is all damage control. Damage control because nobody really has control over the narrative right now. Note this is why DEI and ESG initiatives are also going underground. Granted, they still exist, and the companies that utilize them as disciplines do so as a means of controlling their workforce. With that amount of power that these anti-racist disciplines afford them, they're not going to stop what they're doing. They've simply chosen to rebrand.
Listen to this incredible leap in logic for Godzilla vs. Kong.
And oh look, Kong's been abducted from his homeland and taken across the ocean to America in chains. I mean, there's on-the-nose writing, and then there's next-level stuff like this.
That's a crazy thing to say.
I wonder who you're supposed to sympathize with here.
Yes, Drinker just called African slaves apes and tried to frame it as the screenwriters doing so. That, my children, is what we in the English-speaking world call projection.
The irony of utilizing the Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man meme is that one posting the meme never considers that he is also one of the Spider-Men. I'm also unclear as to what the whole refrain of
we in the English-speaking world call
adds to this commentary.
Projection.
Yes, projection is an English word, same as most of the rest of the words you just used.
In my last video, I showed a tweet by Drinker that I thought made it painfully obvious what his positions on black people in the media were. What I didn't account for was the insane mental gymnastics people would perform in order to deny that his post was racist in nature.
There is no such thing as race.
This is why the left can't meme. If taken at face value, Drinker's statement is the same as saying nothing at all. This is what is known as astroturfing. It is a very lucrative way of generating engagement on X because people there are almost completely reactionary. And even by responding to it, Birdman is playing right into Drinker's hands. And projection, which is what he accused Drinker of, is exactly what Birdman is resorting to here as he analyzes what Drinker says. Note that Drinker hasn't pointed out anything in particular in this image. For all anyone knows, he could be referring to the fact that the child in the picture is holding a small blue cube, and that cube looks very similar to the Tesseract from the Avengers series. And even by saying that, guess what I'm doing? I am projecting my own thoughts and feelings about what I assume Drinker is talking about on an image that contains many things. I talked about this regarding the petty shit-flinging going on X, which has been labeled Goonergate. An X profile named Pirate Nation posted a GIF without any context and asked an open-ended question about it. And without hesitation, various people on X started to respond to it. That is astroturfing. It works in a world where nobody thinks about what they're talking about, but everyone believes that they have to have an opinion about it. Remember when that pregnant nurse was being harassed by a bunch of trying to steal her bike? Yeah, before that whole
all right, Ego. That's a little based. Pirate Nation cameo, that's right.
incident was properly community noted, reactionaries on X had decided they knew exactly what had happened there. That is a prime example of astroturfing. Now, Birdman sees this picture and his attention is drawn to the woman, and he immediately projects his own racism onto Drinker, regardless of the fact that Drinker's comment is still extremely vague. There are a lot of things going on in this picture.
So I'll ask again, what do you honestly think Will's problem with this image was? Do you really believe he's this upset about Jason Momoa's character here?
Baited and hooked. This is how the internet works. Drinker is looking for engagement. He is looking for people to react to things that he posts, all the while saying as little as possible, and this taps into common sentiments without necessarily aligning himself with those sentiments.
So here's a tweet from a different person. If you're unfamiliar, this person is Nick Fuentes, a proud white supremacist.
There is no such thing as race.
Sounds contradictory, I know, what with being a Mexican and having a name like Fuentes while being a white supremacist.
There is no such thing as race.
But no one ever said white supremacists were intelligent.
Really? Okay, then I'll do it. White supremacists are intelligent. There, now someone said it.
The point is, doesn't this tweet seem to be placing emphasis on a specific character in the Minecraft movie? I mean, now that I've told you this person is a white supremacist, it's obvious what his issue is, isn't it?
This is astroturfing. They are baiting your responses and you feel obliged to respond. The actual grift is convincing people like Birdman to engage and respond, which he has done. None of what Drinker or Fuentes do is designed to change hearts or minds. This is all specifically designed to work simultaneously as an affirmation mantra for their viewers and a middle finger to their detractors. This is all tribal. And regarding it being tribal, even Birdman's own labeling, calling Fuentes a white supremacist, feeds into this. This works into Birdman's own grift. Birdman would rather you think Fuentes is a white supremacist, and therefore you dismiss whatever.
That is true. People need to be careful assuming stuff until there is hard evidence of racism, then calling it out is justified. Otherwise, it's a minefield. Yeah, and that's where I get to the point where like that word has lost all meaning. Same thing for a lot of stuff. You have to have some kind of evidence or something that at least, you know, more proves your argument. That's why I only say that there's 3 people that I absolutely believe are grifters. And it's because I've seen things that say otherwise. Now, is it like factual, hard down evidence? No. My criticisms of Smash JT being a grifter comes from a lot of the things he's done, but in a way I am assuming that it is due to his it's pattern recognition at the end of the day. So you need more than just the pattern recognition to fully justify it, right?
Fuentes says out of hand based on that labeling. And that's regardless to Birdman's previous supplication to
science, facts, logic, reason. Oh, and math.
Conservatives do this thing where they'll sit in a room, they'll watch a girl and a guy go into the other room, and they'll hear her screaming.
Birdman includes a clip of Steve Bunnell, aka Destiny, aka the Coomer Gremlin. There's no commentary from Birdman here, and since I'm not a mind reader, I won't even begin to guess what this has to do with his commentary about Critical Drinker.
One of the tactics of grifters and their parrots is to attempt to maintain an air of plausible deniability, so that when they are criticized for their bigotry, they can hide behind deflections. In my previous video, I brought up one of them, the "but Ripley from Alien" defense. In short, these people try to use examples that match or are similar to the identity of a group that they regularly target.
It's hard to believe Nick Fuentes in any capacity because it just feels incredibly performative at all times.
Prejudice against that group. In political discourse, this is probably more well known as "but I have black friends."
So what Birdman is trying to address here is something I talked about in my video, Language of Appeasement. This phenomenon is a very real thing, and it is disgusting, but not for the reasons that Birdman will issue here. Language of appeasement occurs when someone, unbidden, apologizes for making a comment they believe will be perceived as bigoted. The problem with language of appeasement is that it affirms one is even guilty of those thoughts and feelings in the first place. Language of appeasement only bolsters such ideas as inherent white guilt and victim group identities. Now, as a side note, although my commentary here is mostly focused on Birdman, I hold no deference for Critical Drinker. And much of Critical Drinker's own rhetoric does indeed affirm a white guilt state of mind, and an incessant need to apologize for perceived racism. It's built into Drinker's language, and I've seen it come out in spurts, such as his review of God of War Ragnarok.
There also seems to be this weird implication floating around that Ragnarok is somehow a woke game, and honestly, I just don't get it. Either I'm missing something that other people are clearly seeing, or they might be projecting things that aren't actually there. I never once got the feeling that the game was trying to crowbar in some clumsy and inappropriate political ideology to its story, or elevate certain characters at the expense of others. Yeah, female characters like Freya and Thrud are depicted as powerful warriors that can hold their own even against someone like Kratos. The only thing I can possibly come up with that people might take issue with is Angrboda, who looks a bit out of place in a story that's all about Norse mythology, but in the context of interdimensional realm travel, wildly exotic landscapes, cultures, different races, and even species, a few characters with different skin tones is probably the least unusual thing you're gonna see. And it's not like she's even used to make some awkward point about contemporary social issues. She's just a character who's there to fill you in on some backstory, and that's pretty much it. I guess my point here is that while it's important to call out divisive identity politics in media, it doesn't mean that it exists everywhere. And if you start trying to find it where it doesn't really exist, it just becomes a witch hunt that spoils your enjoyment of stuff you might otherwise end up loving.
In fact, Birdman's issuance here that apologetic language isn't good enough is one of the many reasons why this appeasement doesn't work.
We know that doesn't actually work as a defense because we have actual history of slave owners falling in love with their slaves and that male sexists still love their female family members.
White people are and will always be racist bigots in the eyes of these people, and the only manner of winning that game is not to play it. In reality, racism is just one in a long line of methods of pattern recognition and objective observation. And my evidence for that is Birdman's own video citing demographics.
Most rich people in our society tend to be white men. The Riddler was going after police officers and politicians, and again, in our society, they tend to be white.
There is no such thing as race.
And the only manner by which you can even acknowledge these demographics is if you also observe there are group differences in the first place. It stands to reason then that if you are making a passive observation about a particular race, why would anyone be obliged to apologize for being racist beforehand? And even if one grants the line is drawn when one disparages a particular race, that still begs the question what that disparity is based on. If one observes a particular demographic is repeatedly stealing bottles of Don Julio tequila from a liquor store, that observation is known as pattern recognition. Racism is not inherently wrong. It only becomes wrong when your discernment is baseless, not when you are recognizing behaviors that are repeatedly exhibited by a people of a particular race.
But when you have sustained...
I don't agree with that statement because, yes, pattern recognition builds bias. Bias is what you come into, but you should always be, trying to fight against that bias, because just because you see a lot of things happening, right? Black crime statistics are there, and yes, they have a higher rate of crime, but what is the ultimate cause of that, right? Is it the fact that they're they're poorer than any other race? Same thing with like the tequila argument. Is it the vast majority of the browns that are stealing tequila, or is it the poor browns that are in there? Like, it doesn't, the problem with pattern recognition and your confirmation biases, it doesn't fit every single person under that race, and you should always be trying to fight that in it. So that's where I think in this case you're wrong. Yes, people build that off of pattern recognition, but like if you're a police officer, you should not be using that pattern recognition to make arrests, right? He's dressed like a gang member, so he must be a gang member. So I'm going to find a way to search his vehicle. I think it all falls down to self-preservation. Yeah, I think in like the long run, like groups stick together. What's the old saying? A person is intelligent, but people are stupid.
Sustained and consistent campaigns against certain groups of people, it's entirely reasonable to suggest you have a dislike for those groups.
So is Birdman alleging there are sustained and consistent campaigns against certain groups of people? Well, here I thought he was just exposing a critic.
Less important, but still worth a mention, I'm not doing this out of jealousy or an attempt to clout chase. I've been calling out a much bigger YouTuber for nearly 7 years. For me, this is simply calling out another bad critic.
But now the commentary has veered into conspiracy theories? And by the way, doesn't YouTube have a policy against that? What is YouTube's policy called? Oh, right, misinformation.
He is absolutely rich with misinformation.
Now, unlike actual fandom did, Birdman isn't making a call to action against anyone, but even so, he is projecting the idea that Drinker isn't just a dude running.
I know it's random, but have you ever played Farming Simulator? No, I never have. Why? Is it something about pigs? I played like Stardew Valley and Harvest Moon before that. Harvest Moon was one of my favorite games as a kid growing up. Okay, we're just going to delete that cloth shirt one because I don't know why it's acting all fucked. Boom. There we go. But nope, never have.
Running a channel. No, somehow Drinker represents something far larger. Next blurb is Birdman says that because Drinker thinks Gina Carano was miscast, that's evidence that he doesn't like her. And then Birdman uses that as confirmation bias that Critical Drinker hates women. And through that lens of projection, he believes Drinker is being hypocritical when he talks about what literally happened to Gina Carano when she was fired from The Mandalorian.
I just think it's the amount of different things that you can do, and the physics quality is very good. And I almost never hear people talk about that. Well, I think those type of games fall into they seem like very niche games. Not a lot of people I know of want to get off of work and then go work. But for someone who's very interested in that kind of like farming as a whole, they're not a farmer, so they may like the game because it sets them up that way, right? It lets them do something that they think they might enjoy or seems interesting. And simulators in general are getting incredibly close to realism. Like the flight simulator, like from back in the days when I played Flight Simulator to the ones that come out now, it's just there's no difference. You're almost flying a plane in a lot of the stuff nowadays. But anyway,
let's examine one of the most egregious cases of Will's attempts at plausible deniability. On January 5th, 2020, Drinker uploaded a video about The Mandalorian. In it, he had this to say about Gina Carano.
But for the life of me, I'll never understand why they cast Gina Carano. I mean, she's big and burly, and she obviously knows what she's doing when it comes to...
Now, I won't play the entire Drinker clip here for the sake of brevity. Just know that Birdman does, and I assume that Birdman did so because he thought it was proving something. If anything, Birdman's coverage of this story will have the opposite of its intended effect. Regardless of how Critical Drinker may or may not feel about Gina Carano doesn't even matter because he had nothing to do with her being fired. That was all Disney's doing, and Disney fired her on behalf of perceived harm done to an alleged victim group. And what's funny there and Birdman doesn't acknowledge is that Disney did this without regard to Gina's group identity. Instead, Gina was regarded as an individual. What this means is that Disney gave gave themselves permission to be sexist when it came to Gina, but not regarding protecting whatever identity group Gina was supposed to have offended. But that's not even at the root of why she was fired. This Fifth Republic form of governance calls for compliance based on your moral state of mind. Gina was essentially fired because she would not comply with a moral mandate, and that's admirable. Nobody should be called to conform to a morality that tells you not to offend a group identity. Current year ideology sets everyone at the edge of a knife where the powers that be can just pick and choose whether to regard you as a group or an individual. And that all should lead one to wonder where the through line is. But it doesn't exist because the goalposts are in constant motion.
He spoke about this person like she was a dog, outright saying she can't even act.
So it's a hardline choice between Gina is a good actress or Drinker is sexist. Roger that. What a nuanced, factual, scientific take there.
The only side I'm on is reason, logic, facts, science, and math. So believe
yeah,
me.
you can definitely say that it's not reasons, science, and facts, that it is emotional state, especially every time he calls someone a racist, right? It's the same thing that most of this ideology projects onto others at any point in time, right? You're a racist because it's so easy to call someone a racist and dismiss their argument altogether. While I think it's cool, I also think it's a little crazy when some people dedicate an entire room to a flight sim with full realistic cockpit build. So in the lieu of that, I have a friend who does, what is the name of it? It's called iRacing, and he races in a little Discord group of like 90 people that talk about, like, they do little racing tournaments and things like that. He has a full setup that he built in his shed to play that game. Yeah. I mean, some people get so into it that they become like hyper fixated on it, right? They like the idea of flying a jet plane, but they'll never get a chance to fly a jet plane. So they make, they dedicate everything to it. I always said if I ever had money and a new good Mech Warriors ever came out, that I would try and build like something to immerse myself in it, right? Use the actual joysticks and all of that stuff. Especially when I was a kid, I wanted to do it because I'd seen them before. Same thing. You get hyper fixed on the idea.
Very scientifically minded. Like, this is my whole thing is science, facts, logic, reason.
Beyond that, we have the projection of conspiracy theories.
But as soon as she spouts nonsense and conspiracy theories...
See, it's not a conspiracy theory to Birdman when he associates Critical Drinker with an invisible cabal.
But when you have sustained and consistent campaigns against certain groups of people...
But when it's Gina saying what exactly? What did Birdman even specify was the conspiracy theory here?
But as soon as she spouts nonsense and conspiracy theories and gets fired for her troubles...
What? Fired for her troubles? Birdman can't even articulate what she was fired for. But notice again that Birdman is fixated on Drinker, who is really only proffering his opinions from afar while Gina suffered directly at the hands of Disney. But is Birdman mouthing off at Disney for being sexist for firing a woman? No, because in Birdman's eyes, she stopped being her identity group as soon as she stopped towing the party line.
I am not a political type. I rarely, if ever, bring up politics.
You need to take this into account alongside all of Birdman's talking about projection, because the only projection going on here is from himself. He completely overlooks a story about a woman being fired from Disney for having her own opinions. Meanwhile, he's trying to play victim's advocate for Gina Carano as a woman, when Critical Drinker has the audacity to say she isn't a good actress.
But for the life of me, I'll never understand why they cast Gina Carano. I mean, she's big.
Oh, and there's emojis on my screen. Well, that's a very good addition, Birdman. Thank you for telling me exactly how I ought to feel about what's going on. I was confused for a moment.
It's almost as painful as watching Brie Larson trying to be funny.
I do say as I get older, I get tired of like the little jump-ins that say things, like using funny memes and things like that in it, because a lot of them use the same memes and it's so outdone. I get it. I'm old. I have my favorite old man memes, but it gets old and tiresome, we'll say. There we go. There we go.
This man is shameless. If it isn't obvious by now, he has a clear political agenda, and this colors his work. I am not a political type. I rarely, if ever, bring up politics.
Oh, I guess that's true. Drinker didn't spend the first 3 minutes of his video telling his audience he didn't have a political agenda, like Birdman did. Which means I don't know what to think anymore. Alas, if only Drinker would tell me what my opinion should be before he started speaking.
Speaking of agendas, the Barbie movie and his subsequent analysis evaporated any hope I had left for this man's integrity.
Barbie is like the deformed, mutated rage child of Captain Marvel, Ghostbusters 2016, and She-Hulk. It is pure brain cancer in movie form, and I was genuinely shocked by the sheer, undisguised contempt this film has towards 50% of the human population.
and then he does it.
And that should be Birdman's response. Everything Drinker says here contains no actual information about anything that happens in this movie. This is wholly and utterly his own subjective take, which needs no other rebuttal other than maybe his wife caressing his head saying, "There, there." Instead, Birdman tries to fact-check Drinker's emotional reaction to the film. Is this real?
How could he have possibly come to that conclusion for the film's marketing? It was plainly obvious that Margot's Barbie was the main...
None of what Drinker said was worth responding to. This is pathetically spiteful.
He's been caught changing the titles of his videos after a media property releases to hide his terrible perception of marketing material.
So this is one point of criticism that both Birdman and actual fandom have about Drinker, which I agree on. Comics Matter with your boy Zach has also been keen on noticing this as well. And I have yet to hear a good counter argument for why Drinker does this.
On one of Drinker's live streams, he attributed a false quote to Isabella Merced about the failure of Madame Web.
Some of the stars of the film have got theories about why that is, and one of them is right here. Isabella Merced? Is that the word? Merced?
Sure. Yeah.
She said it failed for one simple reason. For the same reason that the Marvels or Bird of Prey failed, because the male audience still hides a deep contempt for everything that is starring strong, independent women.
Oh, God. The truth is the truth, I guess.
Sure. I mean, that's definitely the reason Birds of Prey failed and the Marvels. It wasn't because they were bad films that no one wanted. For sure.
Isabella was, of course, inundated with hate from parrots that took these quotes at face value because why would grifters lie to them? She then had to come out and deny these clearly false allegations, but by then, the damage was already done.
Well, this is actually good criticism. And from what I can tell, the original video was removed from YouTube as well. So yes, very good, very interesting. And again, drawing from the latent criticism of your boy Zach, who granted tends to become a bit unhinged himself, critical Drinker's slop tube antics make themselves incredibly obvious at times. Now, what doesn't make sense to me is that Drinker is doing YouTube full time and his reviews are not very long. So in my mind, there's no excuse for this, and no apology from him only services to perpetuate an image of a personal anti-woke crusade where any collateral damage is to be damned. So my compliments to Birdman for keeping a record of this and bringing this to my attention. See, this is good YouTube. This is good content. Straightforward, with facts. And he didn't even need to...
He has a vested interest...
Well, I don't know about that. People don't want the facts. They want their opinion reasserted so that they can feel happy about it.
And seeing the culture war proliferate in media discourse...
Oh, well, that didn't last long, did it?
This shows the lack of research and effort he puts into his work. No discernment, no ability to perform an investigation, and hastily attributes an obviously fake quote in a concerted effort to confirm his biases. Why would you take anything he says seriously at this point?
Whatever conflict Birdman has conjured in his head is all the explanation he needs for what the Critical Drinker is doing is profitable. Critical Drinker profits off reactionary content. And the terminology I used beforehand was that this is all psychopolitical. The way this works is that Critical Drinker gives his viewers a cushion against people like Birdman and other progressive types who are constantly imposing themselves on modern media and modern media discourse. Drinker provides his viewers powers with a mental bulwark against ideological warfare. And the funny thing about that is he exists in part because people want a refuge from the deluge of woke media. People want someone out there who says that they notice what's going on. Granted, this all works on perception rather than reality because a conman is only able to take advantage of you as far as your ignorance goes.
Yep.
Hence, changing YouTube thumbnails or praising the gay in HBO's The Last of Us, or initially praising Amazon's Fallout show, or telling his audience not to notice Sweet Baby Ink's woke meddling in God of War Ragnarok.
This is not the first time he's been caught manipulating a narrative. The YouTuber Pillar of Garbage exposed Drinker for lying about scenes in Glass Onion because Drinker has a political gripe with Rian Johnson, the director of Glass Onion, and The Last Jedi, a film he and his ilk have pilloried for the past 7 years because of perceived wokeness. Here's a clip.
The example Drinky gives for Rian Johnson's blatant rewriting is the scene where Blanc and, as we later see, Helen spot Duke's voyeurism.
Batista's watching his girlfriend supposedly having an affair with Miles only to be observed by Blanc. Now look at the later version of this exact same scene. Noticed how Helen's been added in here when she totally should have been visible before.
Except no, that isn't true. There's a reason the Drinker plays these clips on mute. Let me put the sound back on for you. That was the first time we see this. There's a close shot of Duke, then we hear the twig snap, and then we pull back to a shot revealing Blanc. Here's the scene as we're shown it later on. We start with this slightly wider shot, revealing Blanc and Helen. Then Helen leaves, causing that sound, and Duke turns round. This point is the moment we saw earlier on, and there's a very obvious, very obtrusive sound cue, the sole purpose of which is to communicate precisely this.
Why would Drinker do that? Is he incompetent, or is he a blatant liar?
I go with both. I suspect Drinker pulls clips online without checking their authenticity and reacts to them in such a way that conforms to the consensus of his viewers. But that's just my opinion, and my opinion doesn't matter.
These are the only two choices you have, and both of them are damning for his reputation. And yet, he doesn't seem to care, because I guess his followers don't seem to care.
I agree. This is slop-tube affirmation bias for people who hate Rian Johnson. This is far less about film criticism and far more about tribal response wrangling. This is also why ER was obliged to come out of the woodwork and talk about this as well. But something else that needs to be kept in mind is that many who were obliged to praise Glass Onion also did so as a form of tribal virtue signaling. That is what's really going on here. The main motivation to praise or mock films right now is indeed based on provoking reactions online. And if that is our working theory, it makes sense why Drinker has not addressed this or will not apologize.
Hold still and go along, man. I'm playing through. You dig?
Something else I picked up on with Birdman's commentary is that he called Drinker here instead of Will.
Why would Drinker do that?
This is worth pointing out because the way Birdman is addressing this faux pas is very parasocial. What would be enough is making the point that Drinker is dishonest and leaving it at that. It's up to the viewers to decide, right? Just wash your hands and be done with it. There's no helping anyone who doesn't want to be helped. But no, Birdman continues.
These are the only two choices you have, and both of them are damning for his reputation.
They're only damning for his reputation if his reputation suffers. But you see what Birdman is doing here is showing his hand. See, why would he even care about Drinker's reputation at all? Just expose him and be done with it, right?
I'm not doing this out of jealousy or an attempt to clout chase. For me, this is simply calling out another bad critic.
But no, it's not enough. What Birdman is showing here is that he is not unbiased at all. He very clearly does not like what Drinker is doing, and he doesn't like the influence that Drinker has.
Both of them are damning for his reputation. The Barbie movie and his subsequent analysis evaporated any hope I had left for this man's integrity. Why would you take anything he says seriously at this point?
He made this video specifically because he wants Drinker's reputation to suffer.
Look at this tweet from Star Wars Holocron. They are very obviously making the point that sometimes
I think a lot of people, because of their bias and stuff like that, or the way they think about it, is they want their reputation. They don't want these people online. That's like it goes back to like the woke days. And I don't necessarily think, I do think that's wrong, right? I don't believe in deplatforming everybody, even retards online and liars and all that are allowed to say stuff. You just have to combat it with, you know, as much of the truth or calling out the hypocrisies as you see them. It's not always easy because people are stupid.
Show's first season isn't always where it finally ends up, with a couple examples including The Clone Wars and Breaking Bad. When Will saw this, I mean, how do you fail at understanding the point this hard?
Yeah, true. Technically, this is misrepresenting the point being made, but this was also an easy win for Drinker in this case, because the point being made is not a good one, because it establishes a straw man. So yeah, you can quibble about the fact that Drinker mischaracterized a strawman, but it's still a strawman.
This is one of two things. He either understands the point being made, but is attempting to misrepresent the point to, again, galvanize an already volatile audience against a contentious product, thereby sending his parrots to harass this account, which actually fucking happened.
And again, this is conspiratorial language, which, again, I'm almost certain YouTube has policies against. So show me the receipts, Birdman. Show me definitive proof that Critical Drinker is making a call to action against people on X.
His Twitter alone is an embarrassment of narrative pushes, from platform-boosting known anti-black racists like Kang Min Lee.
There is no such thing as race.
To even shit-talking PETA, because he perceives them to be left-wing, I guess? I don't know, that last one was just amusing to me. I am not a political type. I rarely, if ever, bring up politics. What this person does is not honest critique. He looks for ways he can jimmy in alt-right political talking points under the guise of being a movie reviewer.
Anyone worth their weight in the alt-rightosphere would know that Critical Drinker has praised the gay in HBO's The Last of Us.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were all very impressed, like, from that technical aspect of capturing the look and feel of the games, giving that mature, somber tone that you expected from the games. I think that aspect of it they really nailed, and I think probably episode 3 was an example of, hey, you know, there's ways you can deviate from the narrative of the games and still produce a good end product. You know, it's something that's emotionally satisfying and tells a really good story. You know, they, like you say, they extrapolated from it a little bit, and
yeah,
you know, it meant changing things around a little bit so that certain characters weren't around anymore when Joel and Ellie show up. But I think ultimately you got a pretty satisfying story out of that episode. So yeah, I very much came down on the side of really enjoying it. I think that was the most like emotionally invested I was in the show out of all 3 episodes so far. More so even than episode 1, which really surprised me. But I think it comes down to that combination of the writing. The acting's really good.
The 3rd episode has a runtime of about 70 minutes. Somewhere around 55 of those are dedicated to Bill meeting Frank and then falling in love and living out a homosexual fantasy in the apocalypse. The two spend their days eating steak and drinking wine in Bill's compound as the world around them burns. Frank eventually gets cancer and is going to die, so he and Bill drink poison and commit together. Then Joel and Ellie find them dead inside their house.
And as far as I know, the alt-right take a hardline stance against any forms of sexual degeneracy. In addition, we know that Drinker initially praised Amazon's Fallout show, which promotes miscegenation and forced diversity, among other things, and I'm pretty sure the alt-right has very candid opinions about that. And lastly, Drinker outright tells his audience to stop noticing woke shit in God of War Ragnarok, like how a Norse goddess is a young black girl. And I can tell you for certain that the alt-right will not take kindly to any revisionism of white culture based...
Yeah, and this kind of goes into the same thing where people... Alt-right is a similar thing to Nazism. If you're a little bit on the right, then you're alt-right. Same thing with like alt-left or far left, whatever you want to call it. No matter where you are, people are going to be on the left. But you want to call people the most heinous, right? You can't just be that you have a bad opinion or that this opinion was this or so or it's dishonest. It's always got to be alt-right. Yeah, I mean, I can come to an agreement with a lot of this stuff so far.
On Norse mythology. Now, I will grant that if you are alt-right and you don't know any better, many of these things may fly past your radar. But the fact of the matter is that Drinker is very obviously not alt-right, and his cozying up to folks like Ben Shapiro is even a further indication that he is far more progressive than his regular viewers realize.
They'll make a movie from the 80s, but they'll just remake it with a different skin. But there's no heart in it because it's not original. You know exactly what... You can see the moves before they're making the moves. Have you seen anything creative coming out of Hollywood recently?
And yes, right-wingers can be progressive too. That's why the alt-right even exists in the first place.
He's not a film reviewer. He's a political ideologue that complains almost exclusively about mainstream media to push rhetoric.
No, the grift is not to push rhetoric. If you believe that, then you've taken the bait and you're just part of the con. The grift is to bandwagon rhetoric to con others into thinking that you are pushing rhetoric. Doing this repeatedly turns it into slop tube and essentially devalues that rhetoric. And that, in my estimation, is the goal, and is primarily my issue with Drinker and channels like his. So Birdman does bring up good points about how Drinker is becoming more inconsistent with his movie reviews as he tries to adhere to the consensus of his audience. But something Birdman does not talk about is the fact that Drinker is working the parasocial angle when he specifies that he is going to listen to what the audience has to say.
So it was
This is something that I've said about Drinker too. Like watching him in a few places, like I was watching him on EFAP one time, and he just would never say anything. It looked like he was waiting for everyone else to come to a conclusion so that he could agree with their conclusion. Like that's kind of where that's the thing that I came with. Is it wrong? Maybe I'm off base on that, but it seems like he's, like I say, a lot of people like Asmongold and them, is their audience captured, 100% audience captured, and they don't want to think, they don't want to say the wrong thing, we'll say, because that could mean that they lose their audience.
Tomatoes for me to check out the reviews. Not the critic reviews, of course, because nobody in their right mind gives a shit what those fucking shills have got to say about anything anymore. I'm talking about the audience reviews, which is the only semi-reliable barometer for quality these days.
Even so, this doesn't change what Drinker's channel has become at this point in time.
Besides the fact that TV show reviews on Rotten Tomatoes aren't verified, meaning they are subject to review bombs, why doesn't he keep this same energy with, I don't know, The Marvels, Black Widow, or Quantumania, movies that have pretty good audience scores? Seems like Drinker is the living embodiment of this meme, doesn't it?
What Drinker does, what Birdman does, and even what my channel does, is provide viewers with a cushion against assailing ideological forces. You see, right now, YouTube has become a realm of cheerleaders and street performers. Realize that analogy. This whole thing is about dropping coins into a pan owned by a dude playing a piano at the street corner. And the grift is that the performer is dressed like Donald Trump and wearing a MAGA hat. That's really all there is to it. And then when someone starts hooping and hollering in anger from afar, that will only ensure that more and more people gather round and toss even more coins into the pan. And even if this street performer would love to regale his listeners with the wonders of Bach, of Liszt, of Mozart, of Beethoven, he knows that's not where the money is.
Of course he'll never come out and say, I don't want to see black people in lead roles, or I'm tired of female protagonists, like The Quartering stupidly did. It's because being that he's selling something, he has something to lose, so he has to communicate in dog whistles to maintain the facade of plausible deniability.
In reference to Birdman's alleged high IQ, attributing plausible deniability to what Drinker says or does is intellectually dishonest. Regardless of what Drinker or The Quartering or anyone else believes in, we know that we are all under the unsteady eyes of a societal panopticon, and therefore we need to structure all our wording in a way that conforms to that society, lest we be outcast. And the reason I know what Birdman is saying here is intellectually dishonest is because he too knows how the game is played.
Monkey dances and monkey noises.
The blatant racism. I wonder if this video is going to get yellow dollar signs. Probably gonna get demonetized for this because, like, holy fuck, he just said that black people are doing monkey noises and monkey like come on, bruv.
This clip is taken from a much longer video where Birdman felt obligated to respond to the Smudcast, a podcast hosted by the YouTube channel Smudboy. The Smudcast covers a variety of media on YouTube, primarily other YouTubers who talk about media. And as you can see here, Birdman is well aware of certain things that you can or cannot say on social media, or you run the risk of being punished. Censorship is so widespread that people have to be very selective and careful about what they say or promote so as not to trip these alarm bells. So the situation is not as clear-cut as not saying the quiet part aloud. The fact is that we know there are stipulations in place that punish people for saying certain things, and so therefore workarounds are inevitable.
And Will, I know you're watching, so let me finally address you directly. Film reviews are not your personal soapbox.
That's always cringe too, that you're coming up with like, I know you're watching. Like, how do you know?
To air out your grievances with minority groups and those that advocate for them. It's irresponsible to your, my, and every other audience that consumes film and teaches them nothing about the art form.
Oh, this is just silly. The dude's channel name is The Critical Drinker, and he plays the role of a drunk, rambling about films. You might as well be heckling Warner Brothers for saying Bugs Bunny doesn't give you an accurate depiction of what real rabbits are like. The Critical Drinker is not a real critic. He is an entertainer. He plays a character. This is a performance, and anyone who watches his channel is free not to watch his channel. Anyone subscribed to his channel is free to unsubscribe. You remember when Birdman said he didn't make this video because he was jealous? Well, he wouldn't be talking about Drinker's influence if he wasn't jealous. And remember, based on a lot of what he says in posts, Birdman is absolutely fixated on his own intellectual capacity.
What's up, Doc? Allow me to introduce myself.
True, yeah,
My name is
I agree with that.
Wile E. Coyote, genius. Now, don't try to get away. I am more muscular, more cunning, faster, and larger than you are, and I'm a genius, while you could hardly pass the entrance examinations to kindergarten.
And here in this video, he makes an underhanded quip about Drinker's own IQ.
I mean, the alternative is to suggest he's low IQ, and I would never do that.
This is about jealousy. This got me thinking it must burn him up something fierce knowing someone like Critical Drinker has more influence than he does. That was also projected by his mentioning how Drinker's reputation was at stake somehow. Except that reputation, according to Birdman, is built into Drinker being a critic. But that has not and has never been the case. Drinker is an entertainer. Go back to my analogy. This is about being a street performer who puts on a costume that causes people like Birdman to seethe and rage. And that, in and of itself, is also entertaining. And in the long run, it doesn't really matter if Drinker knows what that costume means and what side effects it may or may not have in the hearts and minds of others, because in the end, the result is still monetary gain.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
True.
And the best way I've heard this put was by one glib facsimile who said that for people like Birdman, it's not about being on the right side of history. They're incensed at being on the losing side of money. Inspiration for this entire video began when Birdman covered the Smudcast, some of whose members I am acquainted with. And after having sat through and listened to hours of content between the Smudcast and Birdman's response video, I arrived at this piece, which I believe encapsulates everything.
What are they selling? Like this is the thing. If it's AdSense, well, you've got the same problem there, buddy. Everyone on YouTube is using AdSense if they want to. Is that it? Because I don't care what you put through that air through that hole in your mouth. If you're all saying stuff and we're all making money, what's the difference?
Notice here he paused the Smudcast mid-sentence. It's something he repeatedly says he is frustrated with when the Smudcast does that to his video, but as we can see here, he's got no problem doing it himself. And if Birdman had an ounce of self-awareness, he'd have probably abandoned this entire project given how much he ridicules the Smudcast for this format. And yet he continues to act on that format here, and stretched what probably could have been said in half an hour to 2 hours. followers. And in trying to format a response to Smudboy here, he goes on and on about nothing. He also does this with his comments on YouTube, by the way. The didactics must have really screwed with his brain. Whenever he is confronted with anything that challenges him, he almost welcomes the paradox and issues some variation of unmerited impossibility. In other words, it isn't happening, and it's good that it's happening. There's even an unbroken admission within this very response video where he straight up asserts that someone in the Smudcast is racist. And then immediately after saying that, he tells himself there's no such thing as race. And then he shrugs and says he's going to use the word anyway.
If a black person appearing on screen does not feel good or feel right for you, you're probably a racist. I don't like the word because, like I said, there's no such thing as race. Or
yeah, that's
race,
pretty
right?
damning.
But like, it's the best word
to do
that we
it
have
in the same sentence.
And that's what I'm going to use. Yeah, you're probably just a racist.
That's essentially how he handles all of his contradictions. He explains them away as if that somehow alleviates the contradiction, and then just continues to make whatever point he was trying to make in the first place. Notice, however, in his responding to Smudboy, he doesn't get to a point. To steelman one of Smudboy's main contentions here, Smudboy does not understand why Birdman is upset about Critical Drinker's capacity to make money through his YouTube content.
Are you lying? Okay, are you selling something? If they're not selling anything and you're not selling anything, where's the grift?
And so the basic question there is, what is a grifter? And why should we be upset about that? What follows is Birdman struggling to find words. He goes through talking about how he thought everyone should know what the word means, but then eventually he figures he might as well define it. And then in trying to define it, he struggles and has to refer to the amazing atheist who also used it in reference to the Critical Drinker. Eventually he arrives at something resembling a definition, content that generates outrage.
What they are selling is outrage. Again, I provide examples that you won't even let me get to, but an example of a media grifter is somebody who looks at other people and go, okay, well, they're talking about, wokeness in video games and movies and stuff like that, and they're getting a lot of views, they're making a lot of money. So let me try to get in on that. And what they'll do is they'll start making the same types of videos with the.
So maybe it's to the point where like he's talking back here and he really didn't know what he needed to say for grifter. So he ended up finding the idea of media grifter. I still think that idea of media grifter absolutely fits what is happening in the current day and age of online versus just calling but that's not really where he goes. He just calls him a grifter and expects everybody to follow suit, which is a thing that people who talk against the anti-woke tempt me. I'd be okay. I got you. Too much weight. And we're gonna go with this. Dolomite cups. But yeah, it's again, we're talking about two sides of the same coin when it comes to it.
Same types of thumbnails, and their entire personality online, will be this thing. So like you go to their Twitter and every fucking tweet, like they're not tweeting about their day, They're not tweeting about the latest film that they saw. Like, oh, here's the things I like about this movie. They're tweeting, well, look at what Anita Sarkeesian said. Look at this woke propaganda in this thing. Here we go again. Ugly female character in a game. There's a fat black woman in the Minecraft movie. Like, that's what I'm talking about. They're selling outrage. Everything they post is an attempt to get people mad about something. And because they're the ones pointing it out, well, now you have to come to me. You have to come to me to get that news, to get that information that you're mad about. Yeah, come to me. I will tell you the truth. So then they click on your videos, and then you start earning money, and you start getting influence, and you start getting power. That's a media grifter. That's what they do.
Okay.
Even here, however, Birdman makes no connection between the definition of the word and outrage content in general. And although my opinion doesn't matter, my determination here is that Birdman's inability to establish a reason is wholly because searching for that answer would call for some earnest self-reflection. Birdman's content itself has also relied on much of social media's outrage culture, and I wonder if, to some extent, he too realizes that, but is far too consumed with all the mantras of identity politics to listen to his own conscience anymore. At any rate, that's enough for me. The rest of this video is a gift for the Smudcast. Enjoy.
I got them. They're going off on complete and utter tangents about other things that are.
Okay, I think we'll stop there. I can say, from the video's point of view, you went over a lot of stuff kind of over and over and over again. I think it could have been shorter in that sense. But I agree with you. A lot of the things that he says is very hypocritical when he's doing a lot of the same thing, right? Bowyer cancels making trifle pewter bars. Why do I have trifle pewter bars on here? So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that I agree with. There's some things that I don't, right? Because if he's using media grifter and he actually explained what media grifter is, I think that qualifies and falls under that idea of this is what he believes a media grifter is. And I don't disagree. But yeah, you got to stop all the basically race baiting. You got to stop all the telling your audience how smart you are and all this other stuff. And then break down their arguments and actually, combat the, if you want to call it misinformation, the misinformation. Okay, so there's another cloth in here. Cloth dress. But that is the video. We've got one more we're going to watch for the night. And that's going to be an ARC video. Because I thought it was interesting. It's talking about the it's talking about gear fear. And I watched part of this, and man, I massively disagree with it. So we're going to go in and watch this video by Swanee Plays Games. He's a small YouTube, bigger than me, but a smaller guy. And I just think his takes so far are absolutely brain dead. So let's work it out together. I think my main contention there was that there's a genuine rage bait, which can be, but isn't necessarily the same as grifting. Yeah, I agree. And I've been saying it for a while that you can't just call them a grifter, right? You have to, if you're going to call someone a grifter, you have to have something that actually matches up with it besides just the tweets they make, right? Pattern of behavior, actual evidence that they don't believe what they're talking about, something like that. Like even posting the media grifter thing can give that give the wrong impression or not actually meet your ideal. So much easier to just point out where they're wrong and mock them. I think that's the perfect way to go. So let's see here. Let me do some things here before we play this video. We need, for one, I need to make a new one of these. So all in all, I enjoyed it. So I have this thing that's come up with channels that I used to like a lot of days, where I'm starting to notice that I do fall into that bias category, right? Or like, I think they're being objective is, I think, a better thing with it. And then if I really look at it, I start to see the flaws in it. One of them was, oh God, what's that dude's name? Legendary Drops, right? I used to think, oh, it's fair and unbiased, but really it's just anti-woke light, right? He's not going with the full out craziness. He's going for, as close to anti-woke as you can get without crossing that line, kind of deal. And then he's had some hypocrisies of his own. Let's do add a new work order. But yep. So let's talk about ARC. Let's talk about gear fear, because this is something I think has been an interesting conversation. And this guy, I think, is completely off base.
Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Swanee, and for today's video, I wanted to go over some concerns that I have with ARC Raiders. Now, I've been playing the crap out of ARC Raiders this past month, and I've been the max level of 75 for almost 2 weeks now, and the more time that I put into the game, the more I've noticed that some of my early game concerns that I thought would get better over time never really got better. And I think I've realized that ARC Raiders has a bit of a gear fear problem. So what do I mean by that? Well, in the early stages of ARC Raiders,
I think I'm going to start off with this because that's what he's talking about. He mentions gear fear. And I do think people playing ARC have a gear fear problem where they just absolutely want to like not lose the item, so they keep an item in their inventory and never bring it out. And I think if you're going to play an extraction shooter, if you're going to keep it in your inventory, you might as well not have it. So take it out, be okay with losing it, and find another one, find the blueprints, and make it yourself. Oh, our manager is a competent one. Cog. Cole has been my weaponsmith for a while, and they are... Boom. They are pretty good at it. I think 2 should be enough for now.
Raiders, I had goals to strive for. I wanted to get to the point where I could unlock the purple weapons and the gold weapons and use them on the regular, and I thought that the more that I progressed in the game and leveled up my character, the less I would have to worry about gear fear. So what is gear fear? Well, to put it simply, it's the fear of loading into a match and losing all of your best stuff. So instead of bringing your best items, you just keep them sitting in your inventory just to gather dust. And it could just be a skill issue on my part, but I don't think it is, because I've noticed this with my friends that have the game, and I've noticed this issue a lot with people complaining about it on Reddit, and I think there's a few reasons for this that I want to get into. And the first reason I think so many people have gear fear is due to how bad the user interface is. Hear me out on this.
This is such a weird statement.
Loadout in this game, the process of going in and out of all the different menus can be a real pain in the ass sometimes. You have to choose your weapons, and then you have to pick your ammo, and then, oops, you don't have that ammo, so you have to go craft some, and then you click on the wrong menu screen, so then you have to click back on the workshop menu, and then you finally craft your ammo, and then oops again, you don't have any healing items, so you have to go craft those as well. But then you realize you don't have enough supplies.
I don't see what this has to do with gear fear. Yes, they could do better on the interface by like a quick button for you to, I don't know, make things. It's part of it. You know, this is part of the unwieldiness of some extraction shooters that I've seen. So, but this has nothing to do with gear fear. I don't know what this could possibly have to do with that altogether.
The healing items that you need. So you have to head over to the vendor tab to try to buy some of the healing items. But then you see how overpriced all the healing items are. So then you have to open your inventory and try to sell some of your inventory so that you can afford to buy some healing items. And it's just this whole process just gets so tedious.
Okay. You know where he has gear fear in is he's not willing to break down the items in the game. What I do in a game like this is go through and like break down things almost to their common components. There's a few things that I'll keep, based off of that I might need them. Springs, particularly in this game. And there are, I think I can get a little bit more space in between those but for the most part, it's just break it down so that you have it, sell things that are worth money. Like if you don't need any of those, if you don't need a Rocketeer drive, fucking sell it. You can get another one later. You can kill a Rocketeer, right? So, I mean, he's already completely off base on this.
It really sucks the fun out of the game when you spend like 5 to 10 minutes screwing with your inventory before you load into a match, and then you load into a match just to die immediately to somebody that's like camping the spawn or to something stupid within the first like 2 minutes of loading into the match. And I think that kind of sucks the fun out of the game. And that kind of leads me into the second talking point as to why I think there's so much gear fear in Arc Raiders, and it's the fact that the purple weapons and the gold weapons don't feel that fun or don't feel that good. They're just not worth it, to be honest.
True.
Like when I was level 10 to 20, I had that goal of I want to get the purple weapons. I want to be able to compete with the late game players. I don't want to load into a match and immediately die, because the thought process that I had was if I have better gear, then I will perform better and I will kill things faster. And that's just not the case. There's been a number of different times where I finally, like, I played 30 matches in a row and I decide, you know what, I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to bring my purple shotgun and I will go through the whole process of crafting my custom loadout, and it takes 3 to 5 minutes to do so. And then I'll put like really good attachments on my shotgun. I'll load up a match and immediately die. And I never, like, when I die in PvP, it's never a one-on-one situation. It's always due to somebody hiding behind a corner, and I walk into a building and they just unload on me before I even realize they're there. So I can't use my fully decked out purple shotgun when I die to someone.
But you're already being contradictory here. You say that the purple shotgun sucks because all those weapons suck, so you don't want to use them. Like, I agree that they need to balance the weapons better so that there's a reason to want to use those weapons. But I don't know that that's gear fear, right? That's just straight up the system sucks, so no one takes in those weapons. If you want to compete with the weapons that are performing, not the weapons that you want to play because it's a cool looking weapon, right?
In like 0.2 seconds because they were hiding behind some doorway, or you know, I'm trying to go to extraction and somebody kills me at extraction. I don't know. Maybe the problem is just how PvP works and how scummy people are, or people can be.
Welcome to like fucking Cry Me a River. Welcome to fucking extraction shooters. It's the way it is. A lot of this, I think, is like people who haven't played extraction shooters, which I haven't. This is my first extraction shooter, but I came in with an idea of how they work. You're going to lose your items. You're going to get shot down. It's about not trusting anybody and moving quietly. You run from point to point in the woods because you want to get there faster so you don't run into any arc or any people randomly out in the woods. But when you get into a building, you should be absolutely quiet. You should listen for other players. You should, pie your corners, set traps, do all of that stuff that would defend you in that situation. Think where someone could be hiding. It doesn't always work. You're still going to get jumped. You might get jumped at extraction, but you can also prevent that by making raider hatch keys and just using the raider hatches. They're super cheap to make, and you go off to one side of the map, they're less likely to be camped. Like, this is just you being mad that the game lets people kill you.
That's why it feels like the purple weapons just
within the rules of the game
aren't that good. And I've only brought my gold weapons out twice, and I did it on stream. I have literally had my gold weapons for probably 2 or 3 weeks now, and I'm so afraid to bring them because I know as soon as the rest of the lobby knows that I have that golden weapon, they're going to kill me and take my golden weapon. So it's like, why on earth would I even bring it?
It's not like there's not people, and I've had like a completely different experience than a lot of these guys who get killed constantly. I go constantly into raids, and very rarely do I get killed. I get killed if I'm running a lot of raids, I'll get killed a couple of times a raid. And that's if they get the jump on me. But you know what? You can do the same thing to other players. You don't have to be a constant PvPer, but you can take advantage of a situation and then the next moment help somebody out.
That point. I remember the very first time I got one of those purple weapons. It was either a purple assault rifle or the purple gun that shoots heavy ammo. I don't remember what it's called. But I sat on it for a while and I was like, you know what? I'm going to bring it onto Stella Montis and I'm going to kick butt with it. And I decked it out. I put good attachments on it. No lie. I walked out of spawn maybe 10 steps. I saw an arc and I started to shoot at it. And I was like before I could even get a feel for how the gun shoots, somebody came out from a door behind me and killed me immediately out of spawn. I got to maybe shoot 3 or 4 bullets from my gun and immediately was killed and I lost the thing. And that kind of just sucked all the fun out of the game for me for that entire day. And I think I called it quits after that. I was like, you know what? That's my sign that Arc Raiders doesn't want me to play it today. I'm going to go play something else. And I saw this meme on Reddit the other day. It's a meme about your low IQ when you use the starter weapons, and then your medium IQ when you use the purple and gold weapons, and then you go back to being like high IQ when you use the starter weapons again. And I was like, you know what? That makes perfect sense with Arc Raiders. That's exactly how it is, because it makes more sense to just take the free loadout weapons and then go into your weapons workbench and upgrade those crappy weapons 3 or 4 times and max them out and then put some attachments on them. It is cheaper to do that than it is to, finally get yourself a purple weapon or a gold weapon, take that out, and then immediately get killed because everyone's like, ooh, he's got a shiny purple weapon. I want that.
I agree here. I absolutely agree here. But that's a problem with the balance of the game, where they need to balance it so that the higher tier weapons are worth it, whether it's the power of the weapon, whether it's, how cheap or expensive it is. Obviously, I think it needs to be the power of the weapon. Some of these weapons need to come up so you actually want to get them. But that doesn't change the fact that the gear fear is all on you, bud. You get to decide how afraid you are of losing your fucking gear.
Makes more sense to load up a free loadout match, immediately extract, and then take that free weapon that you got and then upgrade it and make it actually pretty decent. Like, those starter weapons are some of the best weapons in the game if you upgrade them and put attachments on them. Like, they're really good, and they cost literally nothing to get them. So I feel like the free loadout is a better choice than the late game purple and gold weapons, and I feel like that's not how it should be. It doesn't really make it fun or exciting to use the purple weapons when the crappy gray weapons are better in 99% of the scenarios. It also doesn't feel bad when I use a free loadout weapon and I have it maxed out at level 4. If I use my level 4 kettle or whatever it's called and I die, who cares? I'll just get another one in like 2 matches. I'll get one for free. But if I lose my purple gun or my gold gun, it's just a shitty...
That very scene, let's go back to that. He's in the building, he's running, he's being as loud as he can, he's letting the person know he's there. He's flat out doing all the things that the game is telling you not to do by you dying just like that. Next time you go into a building, you should be more cautious. You can get to the fact that it can be jarring to lose that way sometimes. I've talked about how my stepbrother feels that way. Not my stepbrother, my brother-in-law feels that way, and that's why he's put the game down. But you're being taught a lesson, and you're not learning the fucking lesson. Again, the gear fear is on you.
Get one for free. But if I lose my purple gun or my gold gun, it's just a shitty feeling. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel exciting. And as a late game player that's got pretty much everything done and I have the max skill tree and stuff, it's like, what do I strive for now? What's my in-game goal? Because when I was starting off as a new player, my goal was to get the late game stuff. But now that I have the late game stuff, I'm like, the late game stuff isn't even that good. The early beginning loot that I had is what I'm trying to use now as a late game player because it doesn't make sense to use those purple items. And I think a lot of the player base kind of realizes just how good the free loadout is, and the free loadout is kind of the meta, to be honest, because you don't risk losing anything.
No, I don't think the free loadout is necessarily the meta. In some maps it is, right? Because you talk about like Stella Montes, it's pure PvP. It gets annoying going in there and immediately getting shot up with a weapon you fully upgraded. But even then, like the shit weapons are still shit weapons. Yeah, I think the what's it called? The Stitcher is a little overpowered in the way that he can just burn through a guy and not have, you can kill a guy in one magazine. I think that's just a little too weak, little too. Oh, damn, I'm getting like no Fluxstone. I know I have Fluxstone on this map. Or maybe I picked one without it. So yeah, I mean, it's. Sorry, buddy, it's still all on you.
Thing when you choose the free loadout, and because of that, you have some really aggressive players that.
Oh, to go back to him talking about like what is there to do. We're at the end of this cycle of content, right? Everybody set up their expeditions. Most people have, leveled out, at least the hardcore sweats. Most people have gotten at least a decent amount of the what is it called? The blueprints. Like you've reached these games ebb and flow. The very beginning of the event is always going to be, incredibly busy. And by the end of it, generally a lot of these games go in 3-month cycles, though it looks like Ark is taking a 2-month, which I think might be a little too short. That's what it does. It slows down. You've done everything that the content entails because you constantly play. The casual is not all the way through. The casual is still trying to level up, still trying to do stuff. Put the game down, wait for the events that are coming up with, the winter stuff, and get through like whatever tiny amounts of quests and come back to it for the wipe.
That have nothing to lose in PvP. So here you are choosing your custom loadout and you bring all your best gear, and then you have some crazed lunatic that's got a free loadout that has nothing to lose, and they're just going to run in and throw their body at you.
Crazed lunatic.
If they kill you,
what a
they
silly
get all your
like
great
phrase.
Stuff, and if they die, they lose absolutely nothing in the process. And then they can just try again. So I think the choice of having the free loadout is why you have so many aggressive players that just will stab you in the back for absolutely no reason because they have nothing to lose.
No, that's just
what I think
it's not about nothing to lose. People will do this with the best weapons, In Tarkov, they bring the best of the best weapons when they go out, even though they may lose all of that shit. It's the culture of the game. You obviously are more of a, you're not in for that hard losing your shit. Yeah, I agree they need to balance some of the stuff so that it's more worth it to take better weapons. But this idea that the gear fear is anyone's fault but your own is still fucking brain dead, and you're kind of being a little bitch about it.
Do is I think they should give you a safe pocket for your weapons. They could make this like an equipment that you have to craft or something. So it could be like a gold piece of equipment or a purple.
That's retarded.
It's not going to be cheap. And if you craft this gold piece of equipment or whatever, you will not only get a safe pocket for whichever item you want to keep for when you die, but it will also give you a safe pocket for one of your weapon slots. So if you want to bring a purple weapon or a gold weapon, you have the safety of knowing that, hey, if I die, I will at least keep my weapon. Now, you're still going to lose your golden piece of equipment, but, you at least keep something out of it. Like right now, there's a problem with the matriarch missions and the queen missions, especially in solos. If you go in and you have like a hull cracker, they nerfed the hull cracker for whatever reason. So the hull cracker is now more expensive and the ammo is more expensive. So it's pretty hard to get yourself a hull cracker, and it's not even really worth bringing because they nerfed its damage. So when you load into these matriarch missions and you're trying to kill the matriarch or kill the queen, you're using your hull cracker or your equalizer or whatever gun to do the majority of the damage, and you're basically just hoping that other players leave you alone and just don't try to kill you.
Then you lose the entire threat of the other players.
And I've had a hull cracker, and immediately somebody just kills me right on spot because they saw that I had a hull cracker. That's my suggestion, is let us craft some sort of equipment to have at least one weapon pocket, one weapon slot, so that we can use as a safe pocket, and then if we die, we get to keep one of our weapons. And it doesn't have to be cheap. They can make it expensive. It doesn't really matter all that much, but at least give us the option in game to keep some of our weapons, because I feel like that's why a lot of people are sitting on them and they're choosing not to use them. So that's pretty much going to do it for everything in today's video. I just wanted to go on a bit of a rant here about, you know, just the state of ARC Raiders, why I think there's so much gear fear in the community, and, you know, how I think they should fix it. Basically, just fix the user interface, give us quicker, faster ways to access our inventory in the stores without having to back out and re-enter a new menu every.
I don't see how any of this shit actually fixes gear fear. Gear fear is your problem
for our weapons.
You have to figure that shit out.
Craft a heavy piece of equipment or something, and maybe buff the purple weapons, because the purple weapons just suck and they just aren't worth bringing. The risk doesn't match the reward with the purple weapons. I want to feel powerful. I want to feel like I have an advantage if I have purple loot. I don't want to load into a match and die in 30 seconds because somebody's spawn camping me. So maybe fix the spawn issues a little bit. I know that the devs have said that they're working on tweaking the spawns, but that needs to come sooner rather than later, because it's
the game's been out a fucking month, bud. What do you want them to do?
That's going to do it for my thoughts on the current state of ARC Raiders. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. If you made it this far into the video, then I greatly appreciate it. This video I know is different than most of the videos I normally make on the channel, but if you enjoyed this video, then please consider giving me a thumbs up, because it helps me out in the algorithm. And if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. And that is going to do it for me. And I will.
All right. So, yeah, the rest of it is just as brain dead as the first part that I listened to. You're going into a game where it's basically saying you're going to lose your shit, and you're crying about losing your shit. I mean, yes, there are things you can buff, things you can they need to change. The game is ever evolving at this point. Oh, okay, hold on. Nope. We want to do this real quick. Like, you have to decide that gear fear is no longer a fucking problem. That's what it is. That's how it's going to go. You have to make that a reality, a thing. Construction. Let's do fortification here. Oh, I can't because it's that layer. Ooh, okay. We're going to do this then. So that's what I've got for today. I'm going to play here for 15 minutes. If anyone wants to chat, say anything about games, about recent dramas, about any of that other stuff, feel free to reach out. If you want to come on stream, I'll let you come on stream. We can talk for the last 15 minutes, or you put it in the chat and we'll talk. Otherwise, I'm going to try and, fix these fucking dwarves. He has 2 lovers. Oh, you go, Labram. 2 children, too. 1 with each lover. Relations. Only son, only daughter. Nice. It's actually really good because my food will increase, at least plant-wise. And I'm going to be diving back into some ARC Raiders. I still play from time to time. I need to get up with like Jersey and McDizzle and run some games with them. because I feel like I haven't played since they bought the game, which is not a good thing if I want them to actually play it with me. Get some of them, make sure they're up to wipe. But all in all, like I think a lot of this discourse, deep pit? Fuck is a deep pit? I personally think that the anti-woke channels need to change course, otherwise they are going to run out of things to complain about. I think they already have run out of quite a few things to talk about. And, you know, with that, it's created this thing where they have to say the same thing over and over again, even when it's really not true, right? It's really not what people say it is. And honestly, I don't think any of them can change course. Mostly because they're so deep into it that they're if they try and start over, they're going to lose the vast majority of their audience and have to rebuild from the beginning. I've been trying to tell you from the roof that this is. Oh. So yeah, that was. I don't think they can. Most of them can't. I think people like Endymion are. Oh wow, I struck a bunch of stuff. We have to get to some of that stuff later, but I gotta have an army first before I really start digging into this. Boom, boom, boom. Let's see if I can get them to move all this iron out. Then I can actually make iron weapons for people and get a little group going, because it looks like I got more people now. 27. You know, some of the smaller channels are just going to die out. That's just the way it is. They're not going to be able to keep up this one. And then there are some of them that are still growing, but I don't know where that's going to stop or if it's actually going to continue. Boom, boom, boom. Now we can go up here. Is he actually smelting it into... Let's take a look. We're going to get a third metal crafter, I think. Competent weaponsmith. And I need to make more buildings. Let's go ahead and order. A bunch of stuff. How many comments does 8-Bit Eric get? I don't know. I don't know. I haven't really seen much of him here lately. 8-Bit. Why is mine always come up? 8-Bit Eric. Oh, he's actually live right now. Let's see recent videos.
A few days ago,
Whoa. I mean, this one, which was recently, here, let me get it over here and I'll pull it back up. Boom, boom, boom. Stellar Blade. So, this video, the Stellar Blade broke records and has failed. Doesn't have many. It's got like double digits. The Chud shall inherit the earth. Let's look at some of his other ones. Like this one got 1.5K. Let's see what we got here. See, this one got more. He's getting comments, though it does stop at a certain point. I mean, I can't say too much. I'm getting like 0 to 1 comment. but I mean, yeah, how big was Eric? You know, almost 100K, 20, and he's not getting really the views you would expect from someone his size. So, yep, not looking good for a lot of them. Boop. Let's see here. Let me get this. Oh, I don't want that. We need beds. They were promoting media they think is against wokeness, like promoting alternative media. I think one way they could improve more of their content is if they were to promote media they think is against wokeness, like promoting alternative media. Like, what's an example of, say, that? Because I mean, there's woke stuff, of course, but is it they're gonna shill the Great Rebellion for the 1000th time? Yeah, and Smash is gonna die on this hill of Yote is bad. I mean, maybe something like that. There's still some audience left, but I think they're fumbling. Entertainment that has right values or stuff like that is not pandering. Oh, are you like saying that they should focus on channels that they're against wokeness, but they are pandering to right-wing values? I mean, entertainment that has right values or stuff like that is not pandering. True. Same. I mean, it is pandering, but you know, so is the left. It's pandering on both sides. That's all it ever is pandering your political views onto this, right? A story can have a more right wing message or a more left wing message, and be fine. You just have to not be a bitch about it, I guess. Start actually critiquing media. But like I said, when it comes to like the gaming industry, I think a lot of them have burned those bridges. People are going to just still give them a hard time over their original takes, right? No one's going to look back at them and go, "Oh, we're good to go." You know, we're set there. Yeah, I guess I was trying to explain that rather than focus on the negative, focus on the positive. Yeah, I could see that, but I mean, the positive doesn't sell as well. That's what it comes down to. Is the positive rage bait is quick, easy, fast engagement that that you can get into. And I mean, it's all over the internet. I like even for me, I'm guilty of it. I like drama stuff, which can be its own form of not necessarily rage baiting, but you're not. I'm not being positive. Like, I didn't watch that guy's video and be positive takes on him. No, I enjoy criticizing people, and I think a lot of people like doing that. Like a lot of it is, they're trying to, pander to their audience for, or people want to just hear their opinion spouted back at them is really what it comes down to. But people also like drama and things, it's a tale as old as time. The news media doesn't tell happy stories as much as they tell the bad stories, because the good stories don't sell. It's just not how it works, and it hasn't worked that way forever. Yeah, drama is addicting. I agree. I was watching Falgi and the Op Block earlier, and they were talking about some dude who seems like he's pretending to be autistic and things like that. And man, it was easy to get into and just really, really enjoy, right? Melt metal objects, smelt. Is this the one that I have? Just smelt that forever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't like it, but I do find it entertaining, especially with how petty it gets. Yeah, well, some can get very petty, yes. And when it comes to talking about drama, it can generally get very, like, depending on who it is, and things like that. Like, I don't like talking about the Ethan Klein, Frogan and all that other stuff, all that types of drama, because it's just, to me, it's brain dead. It's just malicious points. It's the same thing all over and over again. It's not interesting or new. It's just, you know what I mean? But I can watch it learning about some shitter or some freak on the internet that's completely brain dead. And as long as you're not interacting, I think, with that particular person, for the most part, I think it's okay. Now, I guess if you make a video and the person reacts to you, you can get a back and forth with people. But if it's a lolcow or something like that, the whole idea of don't touch the poo. And I think that with a lot of drama, it should be that way. Say your piece, say your opinion, and if they have a rebuttal, make your rebuttal to it. But don't shit fling, and definitely don't encourage your audience to shit fling. We're just going to go ahead and start cutting this out. So, with that being said, I think we're going to cut it here for the night. I want to thank everybody for coming out. If you haven't liked the stream on the way out, or if you actually watched the entire stream after it's been posted, go ahead and give it a like to, help me grift through the algorithm. Because we love grifting here. And, if you really like my content, give me a subscribe. Moving that way up to 200 so that I can, move towards monetization, just to see if I can actually reach it. Like I said before, I miss old school drama of diss tracks and small community drama. Yeah, I agree. I think that was a much better, much more enjoyable type of drama. But like I said, on that note, I'm out of here, guys. I will see y'all on Friday. If you have any content you want me to see, go into the Discord link below, drop it into Feed the Pig, and I may pick it up and watch it, especially if it interests me. Later.
Thank you.